Okay, we should be live now. Giving it 2 seconds to make sure that it's live. All right. What's up and welcome back to another live stream unboxing review with Gizmo Slip Tech. Today we have the Asus TUF A16. This is arguably one of the top 5 for sure. I think definitely in the top 5 value CPU performance gaming laptops on the market. So if you're a user that needs a ton of CPU performance and you don't have that high of a budget, I mean, this is a mid-range costing around $1,600, just a little bit over that, $1,619, currently on sale. 16 cores, 32 threads, all high performance cores, Ryzen chip. Very interesting laptop today. RTX 4070 QHD Plus. This is the 2024 version, so the newly updated and released version. Just went on sale recently, and I'm really excited to test it out. We've got an exciting outline today. We're going to go over and compare competition, pros and cons, unbox the laptop, weigh it, remove the bottom, enter the BIOS, review the BIOS, remove some bloatware, test the keyboard and mouse webcam quality, speakers, fan noise, benchmarks, and a bunch of different games. I'm really excited. I hope you are too. There will be timestamps down below once this video has been live for about a day or two. So please, if you need to skip around, that's fine. If not, please, I invite you to hang out the whole time. We like to keep things interesting, interacting with chat, and doing lots of different tests. So I see a few people in chat. What's up, Sasa and Ming? Can you test Counter-Strike 2 on this laptop? I'm interested. Sorry, man, we don't have that on the testing schedule for today. We've been shifting around the different benchmark games and some of the new games, Dragon's Dogma 2, as well as Helldivers 2, kind of popping in and knocking out Counter-Strike 2 for right now. But I may bring it back at some point if there's enough demand. So, all right. Let's hop into top deals, value comparison versus the competition first. So what laptops would you be in the market considering versus this laptop? So this laptop in particular, the target audience is those of you that want a ton of CPU performance, and that's the priority. You're not prioritizing GPU performance. You're not necessarily prioritizing display quality or portability. This is a medium-sized laptop, fairly portable, 16-inch chassis. And it's like very, very tight, narrow screen to bezel ratio, which is great to see. Let's go ahead and take a look at this laptop now. So this is the overview of the Asus TUF A16. Ryzen 9 7940HX, that's 16 cores, 32 threads, RTX 4070, 16 gigs of DDR5 up to 5200 megatransfers, QHD plus, 165 hertz, 100% sRGB. We'll see what we actually test today for the display quality. Now, the big thing about the TUF is that this is I think a fairly nicely built mid-range to lower end gaming laptop chassis, but at least in this iteration of the TUF A16, it's just such a powerful CPU that in my testing initially was getting well over 30,000 in Cinebench R23, which some of the top laptops from last year can't even do that, and they might cost $3,000 or $4,000. So this is more than undercutting the price of those top laptops by like less than 50%, while providing more CPU performance for those of you that really want that in a gaming laptop. So let's talk competitors. First of all, if you're after something that's on a super tight budget, the Lock 15i. So this is $749 currently on sale, but looking at the CPU performance per dollar, the A16 gets $20.63. The Lock 15 being at such an insane discount at $749. Currently at $21, one of the only laptops to beat the TUF A16 in terms of CPU performance, but it's nowhere in the same ballpark. It's like less than half the performance and less than half the price. The Acer Predator Helios Neo 16, on the other hand, does have an i9 14900HX, and it's $1349. Now, less Cinebench R23 performance at $30,500, but it does provide more bang for the buck in that sense that you're getting more points per dollar. Now, overall, the Acer Predator Helios 16 is going to be a very comparable system, I think, because it's got also a very plasticky build. You got a number pad on here. You got a very CPU-focused build with the i9-14900HX being a 24-core, 32-thread with efficiency cores, more cores, but less hyper-threading. So ultimately, the performance on the Ryzen chip actually is better, though. Now, in terms of display quality, we only have a Full HD Plus 165 Hertz display, supposed to be 400 nits. We'll see what the A16 is today. I don't know how many nits it's going to be, but I'm anticipating at least 300, and it's a QHD Plus display. Lenovo Legion Pro 5i is another great option for someone that wants CPU-focused performance in the mid-range laptop size. So 16 inches, very thick, very metally built, like a tank laptop. Backlighting on the keyboard's not that great. I recently did a review on the RTX 4070 version of this. Really phenomenal thermals on this machine and lots of customizability. Overall, I do like this laptop quite a lot. And from a competitive perspective, this one is going to be very close in performance to the TUF A16, but the TUF A16 is just going to be more performance for your CPU, just because it's got 16 big fat performance cores and they're all hyper-threaded. So $14.99 for this one. So it's actually a little cheaper for the Legion Pro 5i, and this is currently not on sale. Sometimes there are some nice sales from Lenovo that can actually push the CPU performance per dollar up even higher. So that's another one to consider if you're after a ton of CPU performance on a reasonable budget. Another one to consider, the Asus Strix G17, a more premium-ish build, I think, more RGB, a bit better styled, and it's a higher quality display, 240 Hertz, 100% DCI P3 color gamut. So from a video editing perspective, I think the color gamut on the Strix G17 is going to be a wee bit better, but it's only a 12-core, 24-thread CPU. So it's a pretty significant downgrade in terms of CPU performance, but it is also a couple $100 cheaper. So in that sense, from a video editing, or you just want the most colorful display out there that you can get, I think the Strix G17 is a bit more attractive option, but not if you're after the most CPU performance, which brings us again back to the TUF A16, 16 cores, 32 threads, 16 gigs DDR5, RTX. This has 4070 on it, but I think, does this have 4070? I think this does have 4070. Yes, 4070. I'm pretty sure this does. I don't know. For a second there, I was thinking it was 4060, but yeah, I'm pretty sure this is 4070. And the big thing here, 165 Hertz, 100% sRGB display. Not sure what kind of P3 color gamut that the A16 will have. We'll find out with the Spider 5 Elite test today. So let me pop back over. That's a quick value comparison against some of the best competing laptops with the TUF A16. All right, Wheat Food says, I have the Strix G16 RTX 4050 and personally wish they had a Ryzen version of it. That would be pretty sweet. The TUF has a 7945HX. It's almost as fast as a desktop CPU. So eyes of Bice, this is actually the 7940HX, not 45. It's a slightly different architecture, but it's still has 16 cores, 32 threads, and it is not, from what I can tell right now, it's not much slower than the 45. It's almost the exact same thing. All right, sweet. Let's move in. I would love to keep chatting, but let's keep going for the sake of brevity. Biggest pros and cons with the TUF A16. Okay, so this is not an ultra portable. It's like a mid-size, not too thick, but it's not too thin either. The biggest pros for this, obviously, CPU power, high resolution display, and an RTX 4070 that's going to be capable of playing a whole bunch of games at QHD resolution, as long as you're willing to fiddle with the texture settings and maybe some of the graphical settings even on the most demanding games. Now we've got 10 or so of the most recent games and most popular games that are out there, and we'll be testing those today. So we'll see how it does with the memory, the VRAM management, and see if we get stuttering. Also, how good the CPU performance is in some of the games like Hogwarts Legacy, which can be very CPU bound in certain areas of the game, as well as Dragon's Dogma 2. Dead Space can be very CPU bound. Cyberpunk can be CPU bound. So very curious to see how performance pans out across the variety of games. And yeah, that's the biggest pros and cons. Obviously, if you need a ton of CPU power, that's the main draw. If you need a ton of GPU power, you're probably better going for an RTX 4080. And if you're after the best quality display, like this should be a pretty dang good display, but it's not 100% DCI P3 color gamut, which is a significant jump up. So if you needed higher display quality, that would be another area where this one could have improvements or other options that I went over a moment ago, like the Strix G17 has just a higher color gamut display for your money. Okay, so let's move on, unbox the laptop and check out that power adapter. All right. Ulas says, hey, your stream came up and I wanted to thank you for guiding me to the G18 last year. I hope companies prepare their stocks better in the next gen since it was hard to find in Turkey. Yeah, that's true. The 16 gig 4800 megahertz RAM sucks and it makes my life miserable. I'll change it as soon as possible. Well, good luck with the RAM upgrade. I recommend the Kingston Fury Impact RAM if you can get your hands on it over in Turkey. I don't know. Okay, so here's the box. A fairly small box. There was a bigger box that it was shipped in. This was a review unit sent over to me by Asus. I did not buy this one. So shout out and thank you to them for sending the laptop over. If you do decide to buy this laptop, there are links in the video description down below that help support me and my team. But as always, no pressure to buy any specific laptop. I'm just here to help those of you that need a laptop find a laptop that you will love. Hopefully, that's my goal. Make it as seamless and easy purchasing decision as possible. So we've got some nice design aesthetics across the whole box, honestly, like kind of military design aesthetics to this. If you like that, the ultimate force, TUF Gaming. And the TUF Gaming series is supposed to go through some military durability testing. That's, I think, like some minor drop testing, like not too high and vibration and cold and heat. I believe it's something like that. It should be able to withstand a bit more than maybe your average gaming laptop, but it's obviously not invincible as well. So yeah, but I think that side of things, I think just makes me a little more inclined to recommend it to someone that needs to carry this sucker a lot in a backpack, because you're less worried about banging it around and damaging it or something. So activate the force. Bristling with high refresh rate displays and competitive GPUs, ultra durable, tough gaming laptops deliver a reliable, portable gaming experience to a wide audience of gamers. All right, and then you actually do get a bunch of stickers here, like a little mech sticker, a tough gaming sticker, a dog tag, kind of cool. All right, let's go ahead and lift the laptop up and out. So we got a nice cloth sleeve there. Let's put the laptop on the table for right now. And here you can see the rest of the internals. And let's go ahead and take a look at our warranty cards. All right. Let me put the light down here for a moment. All right. Thank you for purchasing an Asus laptop. Register your laptop to receive 1 year of Asus accidental damage protection and other exclusive benefits. That's pretty sweet. So this one comes with a 1 year accidental damage protection, which usually costs upward of like 70 to 150 bucks to add that. Liquid spills, electrical surges, and accidental drops. That's pretty freaking cool already. So you'll need to register the laptop, though, with the MyAsus app when you open the laptop if you want to take advantage of that warranty. And then there's also a 90-day warranty extension if you share your experience with them. So 2 little upgrades you can do there. That's cool, all right? Not all the manufacturers offer accidental protection. As a matter of fact, very, very few offer accidental damage protection. So that's really cool to see. At least out of the box, you know? Usually it's an upgrade that you have to pay extra for. Okay, so front view. Let's make sure that I think you guys can see that. Yeah, so some basic guidelines about where all the status lights are, as well as the port distribution for the I/O and ports. Very nice. Obviously, connect the laptop to a power adapter to get started. And then that's pretty much everything in that. And here's the warranty card. So you don't actually have to register the warranty here. You can register the warranty on MyAsus, the apps. This has some basic guidelines for how long the warranty will last and all of that jazz. Usually it's a 12-month warranty, but as we saw a moment ago, they do offer a 3-month extension as well as a 1-year accidental protection plan. If you want to know how long your warranty lasts, for sure, you can check the bottom of the laptop. And here's the laptop itself. Let's see here. Right here it says 12M. That means it's a 12-month warranty on this laptop. All right, so we have the FA607P. That's the model we have today. And let's go and zoom back out a little bit. So we can see we have a metal top lid. This is a metal top lid, nice little tough symbol indentation here with some arrows on the sides. Some nice accents, I think, making the laptop look a little bit better than it would otherwise. Notice the laptop is not too thin, but it's also not too thick. It's about 1 inch thick, I would say, for most of the width. A little bit narrower in the front, a bit of a taper design to this laptop. And there's a lot of ports over here on the left side. Power adapter port, Ethernet port, HDMI 2.1, USB-Cs, 2 of them right there, a USB-A, and a headset port. On the right side, we just have the USB-A and a Kensington lock port right there. On the rear, we just have 2 fan exhausts. So 4 fan exhausts total on this laptop. A high performance gaming laptop should have usually 4 fan exhausts, sometimes only 2, but usually 4. I like that this has 4. All right, so there's the laptop itself. I did set up all the drivers and everything on here already. So that's great to see. That's great to see. Sorry, I'm just talking. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at the power adapter next. Okay, power adapter. Here it is. So we've got a 280 watt power brick from Asus, and it's a medium size. I would say it's not the smallest size. It's not the largest size. It's about average for a 280 watt, but it's definitely smaller than some. I've seen some really big ones, and they're only like 300, and it's like definitely 20-40% bigger than this one. So for its size, it's a pretty good wattage, I think. And I think 280 watts is also plenty of juice for our RTX 4070 and the Ryzen CPU that we got in here. Here is the power cable, and it's a nice cable quality. I would say it's pliable and not too thick. All right, cable length is a little bit less than 6 feet. All right, and cable length for the power adapter cable. This guy, oh, this one's pretty short, so it's not too short. I guess 3.5, 4 feet is how long this guy is. I would say that it's going to make it so that you're probably going to want to put this on the table more often, which is can be a little bit annoying, but okay. So we'll go over the ports again in a little more detail in a bit here. Sorry, chat. Okay. All right. Syke says, is the G14 14-inch 4060 better than the Slim 5 14.5-inch? Sykes, I have not tested the Slim 5, but I've heard good things about it as well. That's one that I would like to review sometime soon. Just because there's a lot of people, I think, deciding between those two in particular. Let's see here. Can I get into the BIOS still? Trying to get into the BIOS here. I did, okay. I can plug the laptop in for a moment. We're gonna take the bottom off here. But I mean, since we're here, we can go ahead and take a quick gander into the BIOS here. Okay, so you can see we have the BIOS version 306. There is a notice that there's BIOS version 307, but I wasn't able to install it for some reason. I don't know why. Ryzen 9 7940HX, total memory 16 gigs, RTX 4070 laptop GPU. And we can see the screen resolution 2560 by 1600. Battery is at 99%. If you need to actually do more things, you're probably going to want to go into advanced mode, which is the F7, or you can click down here in the bottom right. Advanced mode, which I'm going to now control with the arrow keys, has some stuff in here. AMD overclocking. Interesting. It's still pretty much grayed out. Precision boost overdrive. There's not much in here, okay? I don't anticipate much overclocking for this laptop. You're pretty much going to, unless you use UXTU, there's not going to be many options for doing some overclocking in here. The main things in here that you might want to change would be like your SATA or NVMe configuration if you have a different type of SSD, or maybe you need to reset or update your BIOS. Maybe those are the things that I'd primarily think. Maybe Windows Boot Manager. Other than that, there's not much in the BIOS to do, I don't think. So let's go ahead and turn the laptop back off so we can take the bottom off. All right. So time to weigh, check quality control, and do a flex test. And then we'll take the bottom off. So let me grab the scale real quick. Beautiful. All right, so Johnny the Rabbit says AMD overclocking is possible. There's an advanced tab. I mean, I was in the advanced section. I'm mainly thinking the overclocking would primarily go through something like an external utility like UXTU to do like an undervolting curve optimizer, basically. All right, so we're doing pounds. It's gonna be hard for the camera to see this because of the way this laptop is weighted. There we go. Whoa, really? No way. That is very surprising to me. This only weighs 4.89 pounds. 4.89 pounds. So pounds, tare, make sure it's reset properly. 4.899 pounds. Wow. I am really surprised about that. I thought this was be closer to a 6-pound laptop, but I guess not. That is very impressive. If we were to add power adapter on there, we're looking 6.28. Don't have the full weight of the cable on here. It's gonna be right around 6.3, 6.4 pounds with the power adapter cable's full weight, probably 6.4 pounds. Overall, that is still very, very portable. Especially geez, that's so light. For a 16-inch laptop, 4.89 pounds is very, very good. Okay, so weight, check, quality control, flex test. All right, so quality control, we're just going to do a quick once-over of all of the keys, looking for any weird feeling keys. Everything feels good. All right, touchpad, feels glass. Is it glass? It feels really smooth like glass. Let's go ahead and do a pressure test. All right, so very firm, just a tiny bit of flex in the wrist rest. There is definitely some flex though. It's not flexless, it's just a tiny bit of flex. And actually by the space bar, I would say it's below average flex. Usually there's a lot of flex over here. I'm not seeing much flex by the space bar. That's really nice to see. Going across the front, not much flex. I did notice quite a bit of flex on the trackpad itself though. Like it's a very flexy trackpad. I mean, I suppose as long as you get used to it, it's not gonna be a problem though. Left wrist rest, just a tiny bit of flex, but overall very firm still as well. So that's really rigid, very nicely built. On the left side, very nice. Still, okay, a little bit of flex over here by the LED lights, the status lights, but not much. Yeah, so this backside had the most flex out of any area so far. Very firm along the right side. Going over the keyboard, dang, this thing feels pretty dang firm for especially like a mid-range laptop. I like it. It's feels very good in the hands. Let's go ahead and do a little bit of hinge wobbling. All right, so setting it up. You can see there is some wobble when I let go, but not too bad. Let's go ahead and just, I want to point out something though. This is a very firm hinge to move, all right? And if I try to actually set it a little bit, you can see it doesn't move without a lot of force on it. I don't know if can I open this with one finger? Okay, the laptop kind of lifted a little bit, but it's still opened. Very stiff overall hinge though. Above average hinge quality, I would say. I like the hinge. The feel of the hinge is really good. Okay. Scroll from enable to advanced there. Okay. Interesting. Johnny, I'm not sure how to get to the overclocking, but I didn't see anything in there that really warranted additional. It was just the only option I saw was to enable precision boost overdrive. That was the only option I saw for the AMD advanced overclocking. Maybe we got to look up a guide for it. That's not the focus of today's video. Okay. So flex, good. Hinge quality, good. I would say very good. Let's go ahead and power this guy up again. And we'll get back into Windows. We did a quick BIOS overview already. Weight check, remove the bottom. Oh, we gotta do remove the bottom. Let's turn the computer off again. Can't get ahead of ourselves. All right, so time to check out the bottom. I gotta say, there's not too many holes for ventilation. Looks like this is the main hole for ventilation intake, for air intakes, here and here. There are some additional holes here, but that's not, I think there's only two fans here, I think. But we'll see when we take the thing off. Shabam. iFixit toolkit linked in the description down below if you need tools to open laptops. This is a good toolkit for your money. I think it's 20 bucks. And it's got just about everything you need to open laptops. Here, my name is Brandon Baldwin. I mean, I don't hide it at all. Animator. Bro, why do you want to know serial names? I don't know, that's really weird. In kilograms, 2.2 kilograms. Yeah, I usually use pounds, sorry. That's the way I'm just used to pounds. I should probably translate it into kilograms for everyone whenever I do the weight though. That's a good idea, thank you for that. You know, most of the world doesn't do poundage, they do kilograms, which is a good measurement system as well. I'm just not used to using it. I mean, I'm not giving address away, but my name is fine. Where do you keep all these laptops? I return them back to the manufacturer. Most of the laptops I've been reviewing the last 6 months or so have been review units from the manufacturers. But sometimes it's a sponsored unit or a unit I bought with my money, and I am reselling some of those. So it just depends. But I don't keep too many at the house right now. I used to have like 30 of them last year when I was buying them all with my own money. And I've sold almost all of those now. I've got a guy that that helps me resell all of them. So currently selling the Legion Pro 5i that I reviewed, as well as a Legion 7i from 2021. This one is going to be a pop-up screw, I think. Yeah, so in the bottom corner down here, this is a pop-up screw. It's designed to create an additional gap in the hinge right here. And it allows you to easily get your pry tool in there to get the bottom removal started. Okay, so looking over, it looks like there's one more screw that I missed in the middle here. You want to make sure that you put the right screw in the right hole, because you put the wrong screw in the wrong hole. I saw a picture on Reddit where they put their long screw through their keyboard deck, and it was poking up through the keyboard deck today. I was like, oh boy, that sucks. Oh, that sucks so bad. All right, into the AM. If you're after some cool shirts, link in the description, 10% off for my viewers. If you looking for some high quality, nice cut shirts, linked in the description down below. All right, so this is popping pretty easily so far. Let's just keep going around. Very nice. There we go. Coming around to the back. I mean, things are popping really easily, actually. Just gotta make sure you put it in the right gap. Very nice. I think that's pretty much everything. We got, I think the pop-up screw is kind of latched on a little bit still. Just gotta screw that a little bit. There we go. All right, let's go ahead and set this guy back down. Shabam. So that's how you take the bottom off of the TUF A16. Not bad at all. Let's get a better view of this underside. Very good. Okay, 90 watt-hour battery is a great place to start, but since this is 16 core 32 thread, I would not expect too great of battery life. Probably in the 2 to 4 hour range, depending on what you're doing, most likely. If you're really optimized, maybe a little bit longer. Maybe you can push into the 5. But 90 watt-hour battery is large, so that's great. Speakers. Initial impression of the speakers is that they're fairly large speakers. That's nice to see. A bit larger than your average gaming laptop speaker. I'm not anticipating amazing sound quality from just these two, but I'm anticipating maybe decent sound quality. We got quite a few heat pipes here in the back. Let's take a look at the heat pipe layout more specifically. So we can see we've got a 2-fan system here and here. And we've got 2 primary shared heat pipes that go over the center. And this heat pipe goes over both fans. And then we've got a dedicated heat pipe that goes to this side and a dedicated heat pipe that goes to that side, as well as a heat pipe that comes around the VRMs. This is the VRMs up here, and wraps around the lower side as well of, I believe this is the GPU or CPU. It's hard to tell which one the CPU is and the GPU is on this one because this is they're sized pretty similarly. Usually the GPU is the larger, but they both have 3 heat pipes going through them. I'm guessing this is the CPU over here. Okay, so overall, the main thing to keep in mind is that since we have 2 shared heat pipes and 1 dedicated for each, it means that not all of the cooling potential of this laptop is shared across both fans. So if there was, say these heat pipes were connected, we probably would get better single-sided performance on just the CPU or just the GPU, but dual performance should still be excellent because you actually get a little better heat efficiency when you have the end of the heat pipe directly over the specific component for that component. So they each have 1 dedicated heat pipe as well as 2 shared. So overall, I'm anticipating some good thermal performance on here, at least a good amount of wattage that can go through here, but maybe not like a ton, right? There's not a ton of heat pipes here. There's not a giant vapor chamber. This is like medium level heat pipe design. And I mean, this is not a 330 watt laptop. This is not a 175 watt GPU. So it makes sense. We're not pushing insanely high amounts of wattage through this laptop. It should be enough cooling to at least get us to have great performance. Don't know what our actual final temps will be though. That'll be an interesting thing. Let's go ahead and see what's under this black shroud. All right, so first up, we have our SSD right here. And it's got another silver shroud over that. Then we've got our 2 SODIMM slots right here. And we've got another open M.2 SSD right here. So we've got a 1 terabyte, I believe, SSD here and another open slot right out of the gate if you want to upgrade your SSD with another one. Battery, of course, removal right here if you want to actually take these RAM sticks out. I usually do remove the battery. Let's just pop out the RAM anyway and take a quick gander at that bottom. Okay, there's nothing on the bottom of those. I guess if we're going to see any information, it's going to be on this side. Do we even have a brand? I don't see any branding here, but it's PC5 5600. So overall, I mean, we're not going to run it at the full speed of that RAM anyway, because this CPU, I believe, is going to downclock us to just 5200 mega transfer. So it's not going to be full speed RAM. It's not going to be the full potential speed of the RAM anyway. Okay, so overall internals looks promising. Looks like we have some maybe decent speakers, but not amazing. 90 watt hour battery is excellent. Spatially in here, we're efficient. And I'm liking the design overall, especially for a more mid-range budget-ish, not budget-ish, but like mid-range. It's definitely not a budget laptop yet. I mean, eventually it'll go on sale more and more, but you know how it goes with laptops. Anyway, the main thing is it's a good design for the price point, I think. All right, let's just do a once over, make sure that we're all popped in all the way around. Looking good, looking good. It was very easy to pop it back into place. And let's take the screw and start putting in there. Is this the Ryzen 9 or 7? Oh, the Amazon link shows the Ryzen 7. Oh. This is the Ryzen 9 7940HX. If the Amazon link shows the incorrect CPU, then that is a problem. That would be the incorrect price then. So we'll have to adjust that. I thought it said 7940HX on the Amazon link, but maybe I didn't look closely enough. I can do a quick check. Yeah, you can see, wait, let's just open this and we'll put it into here. So clicking that Amazon link, you can see it has the Ryzen 9 7940HX for $1619. So it is the 16-core 32-thread. This is the exact laptop that we're testing right now. So that is the correct link indeed. But thanks for making me question myself. Do I do giveaways? Not usually. I used to, but I felt like when I did giveaways, it was a lot of like inauthentic audience that didn't really care about the content as much. They were just there to get giveaways rather than watch the content. So I changed my philosophy around doing giveaways basically, and instead focus on making as good of videos as I possibly can. So that is my content philosophy, and making as high a quality of content as possible. Okay, very nice. Just double checking all the screws real quick. Looks like we're nice and tight. Very good. Let's go ahead and put this guy up. And we're ready to flip this guy over, plug it in, and let the fun begin. Okay, so we have removed the bottom, internal analysis. It's time to analyze and review the ports on this laptop. There are a lot of pros and cons to the ports here. We'll get into the nitty-gritty of that here in just a moment. Let me pull them up. All right, okay, we'll go here. We'll pull up the Asus page. And here is the ports right here. All right. So it looks like both of the USB-Cs support G-Sync as well as DisplayPort out, but only one of the ports supports power delivery. The USB-As are 3.2 Gen 1s, which are not the most recent. So let's just go ahead and show you all of these ports now. Okay, so on the left side, let me go ahead and zoom the camera in here. Okay, so on the left side, we have our fan exhaust power adapter port. Here, you can see it's a rounded one, so it can be facing front or back. Upward facing Ethernet port is nice. HDMI 2.1. I don't know which speeds that HDMI 2.1 is, if it can handle like 8K 60, I don't think so, probably not, but probably 8K 30, I don't know. Then we've got USB-C with DisplayPort and G-Sync support, and then USB-C with G-Sync and power delivery. I believe that's what that symbol is above it. And then we have a USB-A 3.2 Gen 1, and then our headset combo port. So you can use a mic and a headphone, mic and headphone combo. And then on the right side, we just have the USB-A 3.2 and a Kensington lock port, which can be used to like lock the laptop down. So that's the ports. Overall ports, I would say, in a sense, the ports are a little bit disappointing. There's no Thunderbolt 4 support. There's no USB 4, which would be kind of the equivalent for Ryzen. And I don't know what the wattage on the power delivery is either. And overall, there's only 4 total USBs. So there's only 2 USB-Cs and 2 USB-As. I prefer 5 total, especially on a 16-inch chassis. I feel like they could have put 1 more USB-A on here, definitely. And then there's no SD card slot. I wish it had a full-size SD card slot, especially with this powerful CPU. I think a lot of people would love to process media with this 16-core 32-thread CPU. So yeah, those are the ports. Overall, I give them like probably around a 7.5. They're not bad. They're not good. They're not great. Just like okay. They're like good enough for most people. They're good. They're just not great. No super high speed USB 4. That's probably the biggest downside, and the no SD card slot. Those 2 things right there are the things that kind of really dock the port scoring that I usually would give. Okay, so just want to make sure that the keyboard backlight is going. Very nice. Okay, so next up, we're doing bloatware evaluation. I just want to point out, yes, this does come with McAfee, and it's still installed, okay? And in the course of using this laptop, I've had probably 5 different pop-ups. They look like this. And in my opinion, they're really annoying. So I want to kind of shame Asus a little bit here. Bad. This sucks for users. And most users don't even really need this. They just need to be smarter about what they download or don't download. And if they want virus protection, they can get it on their own. They don't need to have it this adware. This is adware pre-installed on the machine. It has pop-ups. It has scary for users. And there it is right there. It just popped up right there again. And it's your virus protection trial has expired. Secure this, and it's going to cost money, and it's just annoying to deal with. And I think that laptops should not come with antivirus anymore. That's my opinion. And so that's what I'm pushing for. I think it'll make the end user a better experience. We're going to remove McAfee live on the live stream. This is what I'm going to do going forward. So, in my opinion, if you have Windows Security, Windows Defender, and you're careful about what you download, you don't just willfully download stuff. If you're torrenting files, then yeah, you're wanting an antivirus. You want to pay for a subscription or whatever. That's fine. But yeah, that's not good. Okay. And that's almost true for almost every gaming laptop out right now. They almost all have this issue where they're all spamming antivirus with scary pop-ups that try to bait people into buying expensive yearly subscriptions. And I don't like it. Okay. So let's move on to the next segment. Check webcam quality and Windows Hello. So this laptop does not have Windows Hello. That is a con. The lack of Windows Hello just means it's going to take a little longer to log in. You'll have to use a PIN. Thankfully, there is a number pad on the keyboard. So that makes it really easy to use a PIN if you want to use a enter. Just install fresh Windows. Yeah, I mean, you can, but most people don't want to go through the hassle of installing a fresh set of Windows. And sometimes, honestly, installing fresh Windows can mess up your installation. I tried doing a fresh install on my Legion 2021, like my Legion 7i, and it literally made the laptop brick itself almost. Because it was only compatible using the Lenovo Windows 11 ISO file. It installed some special utilities or something in the background. It would not function normally. without those installed ahead of time. So I had to contact Lenovo and get those specific ISO file from them, which comes with all the bloatware. So pretty annoying to deal with, but it is what it is. Okay. So we've removed McAfee. Other than that, I mean, there's obviously going to be some other kind of bloatware in here. Luminary, Neo, Grammarly, Spotify, Dolby Access. Like there's like Dolby Access, I wouldn't really call bloatware as much as it is because it does help control your audio. Of course, you have an Armory crate, which you need to control the laptop. You got some Microsoft tools, LinkedIn, and some Microsoft Office stuff. Not too bad of bloatware aside from I just don't want anything popping up on your machine or interfering with your user experience. Those are the things that just gotta go. You gotta have a clean user experience for users when you are loading in and installing stuff on your laptop. Yeah, okay. All right. So webcam quality, let's do it. Camera. Ooh, okay. So, wow. That is not very good color replication. My skin tones are coming back to be a little better in line. The whole color balance is shifting with my lights in the background and maybe affecting things here. Let me turn that off. Okay. That is helping, but I am still super blown out. Okay, it's dimming, it's controlling the color correction. Okay, it's a little bit better, but not like great. This is still kind of a crappy webcam. And the detail is not particularly great either. So this is me talking to the camera. Let's go ahead and start typing on the keyboard as well. How does it sound? Can you still hear my voice? All right, and let's take a couple of photos. Very nice. Let's go ahead and take a look at our photo quality. Okay, so the photos not overexposed. You got some hairs you can see on the beard, but I mean, I want to see my eyeball popping in more detail. The Lumix is readable, Lumix, but it's not great. Overall webcam quality is probably like a 5 or a 6 out of 10. And let's go ahead and hear the audio for the mic. Wow. And start typing really great either. So this is me talking to the camera. Let's go ahead and start typing on the keyboard as well. How does it sound? Can you still hear my voice? So the typing on the keyboard did kind of interfere with the audio, but the audio on the mics were actually pretty good. That was good audio pickup. It was very clear, very easy to understand my voice. I would say above average mic quality, but video quality feels subpar. I'm going to give the video quality 6 out of 10, the audio quality an 8 out of 10, or 7.5. I don't know, somewhere in that range. It's not too bad. All right, keyboard and mouse. So this is a overall really good keyboard, I think. All right, we got a lot of functionality on this keyboard. We've got a full-size number pad with a nice layout to it. It's got a nice backlight to this keyboard as well. Let's see if I can go ahead and just turn off all of these lights real quick. And we can get a better close-up of this keyboard. Okay, so as you can see, we have WASD keys that are transparent, and I think it does look pretty cool. I don't mind this actually. The primary issue with the backlighting is that the F1, the letter, like the number part of the F1, for example, is not very lit up. The 1 is pretty dim. Asus has this problem on a lot of their laptops. They just don't evenly backlight everything. And it just is a bit annoying when, you know, you're trying to pick out which key to press, and it's hard to read if it's the F3 or the F5 or you know, whatever. So overall, the keys themselves are pretty well lit. It's just the corners of each of the keys that are kind of hard to read. So let's go ahead and go over all the functionality of this keyboard. All right, so we have a caps lock light up key. We've got WASD keys that are translucent. We, of course, have our mute button on the F1 and our volume down, volume up, microphone mute, and the Armory Create launch button. Then we have the keyboard backlight down and up for F2 and 3, Aura button, which will change your keyboard look. So you can go to static, breathing, strobing, color cycle. And those are the defaults, but you do have some, you can like set, for example, a custom static keyboard backlight if you want. We've got fan profiles. So holding the FN key, we can tap that to change our fan profile between the 3 defaults, silent, performance, and turbo. And then we have the snipping tool, display brightness down and up, monitor switch, trackpad disable, sleep button, Windows in our like airplane mode for Windows. And then we've got our number pad. And there's a lot of functionality in the number pad as well. You've got delete and insert, pause and break, print screen, system rec, home and end. And then you've got secondary home and ends on the 7 and 1, page up, page down on the 9 and 3. So depending on if the num lock is on or off, you'll be dealing with the home and end, page up, page down. And then you also have a secondary delete key, as well as a calculator quick launch button for the enter key. So if you need to quickly launch that, you can just press that when the num lock is disabled, I believe. Or you might have to hit FN. Yeah, you hold FN and then press that, it'll launch the calculator. So yeah, and then the arrow keys are an additional home and page up and page down, and the arrow keys are shallow, but at least the left and right are not fat. So it's much easier to deal with this setup, I think, than the laptops that have the fat left and rights, because you end up mispressing the left and rights all the time. So yeah, that's the primary keyboard functions. Everything looks good on the keyboard. It's a chiclet, kind of soft rubbery feel to the keyboard itself. There's not much keyboard flex. And there's like I said, there's a lot of functionality because you have the full size number pad, you got volume control, I got, you know, a lot of great shortcuts. The one thing I wish this keyboard had was a FN lock key. So being able to press FN plus escape to do an FN lock, and that would change the primary functions of your F1 through 12s from F1 to the secondary function and back and forth. That'd be my primary criticism of the keyboard. Other than that, feels good, good layout. Especially for a laptop of this size, and giant thumbs up. Let's talk trackpad. So I believe this is glass. It feels glass. It's very smooth. The only issue with the trackpad is it's very bendy compared to everything else. You cannot click it at the top like most trackpads. You also have the TUF, TUF, along the left side. Some people aren't going to like that, all right? Yeah, there is also a sticker right here. I don't know if you guys care about the sticker, but sometimes stickers can be a bit annoying to remove. You also have a little TUF logo right here. Now, getting back to the trackpad. Trackpad quality is large. It's clickable. It's usable. I would say it's like a solid trackpad, but not necessarily like the most premium trackpad you'll ever experience. But since it's large, it's clickable, no issues with it in my opinion. It'll work just fine. Quite well for anyone that needs to use the trackpad for a while for extended use. Yeah, the main issue I think is that it's very deep clicks. And I don't know if you like that, that's great. If you don't like it, like I preferred a more like stable click and less bendy to the trackpad is what I prefer. Feels like I have more control over it that way. If the click is shallower. Okay, so that's the keyboard and trackpad gone over in detail. It's time to test this display. Let's do it. So got the Spider 5 Elite here. This is going to let us test the display's brightness and color gamut. It's got to put the code in real quick. Beautiful. All right, so we're going to be doing our display analysis. We're going to do the color gamut and brightness and contrast. We'll make sure our brightness is up to the maximum. So brightness is at max. Let's go ahead and see what we get. I'm guessing in the range of 20 ms for gray to gray response time. Probably. Low key music says, is this a 16-inch laptop? Yes, this is a 16-inch laptop. It depends on how you measure the gray to gray response. Nomadic meow. There's like the most rigid like click to like pixel response time versus like how quickly can the display simply turn on and off is different, you know? And I wish I had a tool to measure that. I would love to be testing the response time during the display tests. The best thing I can do is give you my hands-on experience as an esports player and give you my impressions of whether the display has ghosting, and also give you the claims that the manufacturer says for the response time, which is usually very low milliseconds. It's usually like 3 or 5 or something. But the reality is that it's probably quite a bit larger than that for real gray to gray response time. Yeah, Jared's Tech has a tool for measuring the gray to gray response time, and I really wish I had one. So I just don't have the tool. I should invest in one. It'd be a great investment. If the TUF logo on the trackpad would light up in the dark, it would be awesome. Yeah, that would be pretty sweet. I agree. The TUF logo does look pretty good. I agree. It doesn't look bad, but some people would rather not have the logos and stuff, right? So keep in mind with the Spider 5 Elite, this thing is underestimates the color gamut, usually by about 7-ish% versus what most manufacturers rate the display. So I usually add 7% to whatever I get for the value, because that's usually the most accurate value based on what other people test. 97% sRGB, so we're above 100% sRGB, which was the claim for this display. 76 Adobe RGB, 77 of the P3 color gamut, so adding 7% to those is 83 and 84%. 84% of the P3 color gamut is pretty good, but it's not going to be great necessarily for video editing, because you really nowadays I think want 100% of the P3 color gamut. 430 nits. That is brighter than I thought the display was. Honestly, I was thinking this is going to be like a 350 nit, but 430 nits. 930 to 1 contrast ratio. Contrast ratio is definitely not great. It's about average for a gaming laptop. But I mean, maybe slightly above average, but it's very common. The nits brightness, though, is excellent. 430 makes this laptop display easy to see and going to be accessible pretty much anywhere. Even in daylight, you'll be able to at least see the display somewhat. Maybe not great in daylight, but bright rooms and brighter environments, it'll be very easy to use this laptop. So that's fantastic overall result for the display, and a little bit better, honestly, than I was expecting. Very nice, very nice. Keanu Steve said battery life. I would not expect good battery life on this laptop because of the Dragon Range CPU is not very battery life friendly. Probably looking at like 2 hours on the least optimized web browsing and probably more like 4, maybe 5 with really optimized web browsing. Probably on average 3 to 4 for just you unplug it and you browse the web, or unplug it and watch Netflix or something, maybe 4, somewhere in that range. Okay. All right. Laptop control software. Let's go ahead and do a quick tutorial on the Armory Crate application. So Armory Crate is something you can launch with this keyboard button right here. It'll pull up, and this lets you control the laptop in a whole bunch of different ways. But the most important thing is going to be your fan profiles. So you have silent, performance, turbo, and manual. And silent basically will make the laptop much quieter, but neuter the laptop's performance. But if you're in a library and you want it to be quiet, then I recommend it. Performance mode is a good balance of some fan noise, but higher-ish performance, not maximum performance, but it's pretty good performance usually. Turbo will be very high performance, very close to the max possible performance, but maybe not quite, just maybe a hair under max performance. Maybe in some cases a little bit better than manual mode, but usually manual mode with everything turned up to the max is the way to go. Now in manual mode, you can set your fan profile curves so that based on your temperature of the CPU, you can have the fan for the CPU go up or down. For the GPU, you can also set a separate fan profile curve as well as your CPU's TGP. So you can go all the way down to 55 watts if you want, or 70, 80, 105, or 115. And then you also have the dynamic boost of 25. So this is up to 140 watts on the RTX 4070, which is the max theoretical performance. Now, I do notice that they are letting you go to a 200 overclock for the base overclock here. Usually, they limit you to 100/200. This limits you to 200/300. That's nice. That's a good overclock range, and most RTX 4070s will be able to do the full 200/300 overclock, no problem. Now, if you want to set up specific manual modes that are a little different, like medium fans, but good performance, maybe like half of the CPU wattage or something, or your GPU wattage down to 80, and you're like trying to make it quiet, really quiet, but still reasonable temperatures. You can save different manual fan modes up here. So if you change something, like I changed that, I can now hit save, and I can create a new manual mode 1 or create a new one right here. And now I've created manual mode 2. So you can make different, different types of manual modes that I love that. And so if you want your perfect blend of audio quality for your room noise or whatever, you just want it to go max, boom, boom, just jet engine mode, and you give the most performance, you can do that. Or you can go for something that's medium, quiet, whatever. I like the Armory Crate for this reason. This is probably the #1 feature in the Armory Crate software. Other features, you got your CPU and GPU stats, not really great stat monitors in my opinion. I recommend HW Info instead. GPU mode, there is I wonder if, so to be able to switch this, right, we would need to actually restart the machine. When you go in, right now we're in ultimate mode, which basically disables the onboard integrated graphics. And if you were to go to eco mode, you could switch off the dedicated graphics, so the RTX 4070 will not turn on accidentally, which can drain your battery life. So I like that there is different options. You can hear the fan noise ramping up here. Let me just go ahead and put the fan noise back to turbo. It's interesting that it's only letting me switch between standard and ultimate right now. Eco mode is grayed out. I think you need to go to standard mode first, and then from standard mode you can switch into eco mode or optimized mode. But you can't go from ultimate to eco and optimized. You have to go to standard and do a restart first. That's, I believe, how that works. Now, you have Windows key, you can disable that. The Armory Crate key, touchpad disable, and panel power saver. So that switches your display refresh rate down to 60 Hertz in battery mode to conserve battery life if you want to save battery life as more as possible or as much as possible. Now, in the bottom left corner down here, we have the settings button, and we can go to the update center here. And here's where you can update a bunch of the onboard applications, such as Armory Crate itself, Aura lighting service, and some other SDKs and stuff. Overall, it updates pretty well, but you sometimes go in here and hit check for update and hit update, and then it downloads and updates. Generally, many of those updates will just come straight through Windows updates themselves, because Asus does coordinate with Microsoft to deploy updates to the laptop automatically. So generally, you don't really have to do that whole manual update very often. You just go in here, click check for updates, and usually all that stuff will get updated eventually. But if you want the most up-to-date stuff, as soon as Asus releases it, then I recommend doing Armory Crate, because it may take a little while for them to deploy it through Microsoft. The other application you need to be aware of is MyAsus, which is this blue button down here at the bottom. Boom. So MyAsus is where you can extend your laptop's warranty. You can register your warranty. You can do BIOS updates, which this says it does need a BIOS update, but it won't actually let me update it for some reason. Right now, I don't know. Like, I checked Asus's website, and BIOS 307 was not even on their website for some reason. And yet in the MyAsus app, it says that it's available. So, but it wouldn't actually install it. So I don't know what's going on there. Maybe it's only partially deployed or something. But usually BIOS updates can be found here in MyAsus. The other thing you need to be aware of is the battery care mode in the device settings here. Battery care mode, you can set the battery to charge to only 80%. That will help prevent your battery from deteriorating as quickly over time, because lithium-ion batteries prefer to be stored at 80% or less. Really, they prefer to be stored down at 50%, but 80% is a good middle ground. So there you go. Those are the key areas of everything you really need to know. There's also, I guess, Dolby Access, which you can change your sound profiles, which we're about to do this anyway. So I can go ahead and just go into settings here, and you can see there's dynamic, music, game, movie. Usually I just use dynamic. Usually it provides close to peak audio performance with these Asus laptops overall. Okay. So that's a laptop software evaluation. Let's do our speaker test with decibel meter next. Let's do it. All right. So here we go. Scooting this back. Shabam, shabam. So first up, we have, what is the band? Peter Spacey Roar. Let's hear this audio. Also, let's go ahead and get our room bass decibel reading. A little bit louder in here today. I wonder if that's because my, is my laptop stuck in high performance mode right now or something? Is the Blade 18? No, I'm not. Interesting. Just a little bit louder in here. I can hear the Zephyrus G16 behind me. Let me put that in silent mode. Okay. .42 decibels for our bass. Let's go ahead and hear this audio. I'm gonna put the mic down here next to the decibel meter. All right, so the speakers are decent-ish, not amazing, all right? They're like pretty average. Let's move into Faded A on Half-Life. Maybe this song will be better. Not very much bass in Peter Spacey Roar. Peter Spacey Roar is all about bass, and it's just not that thumpy. So Faded A on Half-Life is next. So I would say that song sounded better, but that song sounds better when you don't have a dedicated subwoofer because the bass and the mids kind of go in and out at different times. It's not as jarring or not as muddled when they all muddle each other on the same speaker. So let's do our last song, La La Love You Like by Deuce Williams. Here we go. So audio-wise, I'm going to say it's a solid 7 rating for me. The bass is only a little bit bassy when it's the only thing going on. As soon as you get the mids and highs in there, like the bass becomes pretty low priority. The mids kind of take over. And that just comes from having the lack of dedicated subwoofer, basically, because this is more budget 2-speaker system as far as I can tell. And yeah, and the overall clarity on the mids and highs, not that great. The overall volume, not amazing. I think I saw up to 85 decibels on the meter at the highest point. So overall, it's okay. They're not terrible speakers, but they're nothing special, okay? Definitely a little bit better, I think, than the TUF F15 from last time we tested that TUF series, but it's not much better. It's pretty close. Fan noise testing with decibel meter is next. So it's time to get TimeSpy loaded up and see how loud these fans are. Justice says, hello, first time sub, was wondering what you consider the gold standard for non-Mac speakers in a laptop. Currently, the best speakers out of the 60 or so laptops I've tested in the last year and a half are the Blade 18. They have punchy bass, good clear mids and highs, and they're very close to a MacBook speaker, but I would still say a MacBook Pro is a bit better. The next best would be the Zephyrus G14, which was a more portable system. So surprisingly, really amazing speakers in that. Yeah. But yeah, those are the two best Windows laptops as far as best I can tell. Those are the two best that I've tested. Galkan says, love your vids, keep it up. Thanks. Appreciate it. I'll do my best. Okay, so Time Spy. Is what we're gonna run now. We're gonna run the graphics test 2 in a loop. And this will load the GPU with a ton of demand so that we can see what the temperatures are like and how loud the fans ramp up to. So we're gonna put laptop right there. We're gonna pull this out right here. We need to go to manual fan mode with max fans, everything. We're gonna do jet engine mode to start with, and then we'll move into the lower fan speeds. All right. Zach said, did AMD just give up on the laptop 7700S and 7800S GPUs? I don't know, Zach. I don't think they gave up on them. The Asus TUF is actually currently in the top deals. We're gonna let this simmer for a minute and get the right temperature. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. So if you go to my laptop list, and go in here to right here. Okay. All right. This was here yesterday, but it's not here today. Okay, never mind. So there is an Asus TUF with a 7700S in it. And it's on the more affordable side. It was I think it was $800 yesterday. And at that price point, it's pretty attractive. Right now, the 7600S for the Asus TUF is $934. The main issue is it's just difficult to complete right now with frame gen because we have DLSS. DLSS with frame gen still is supported by a lot more games. You know, as time goes on, we'll have the playing field be more evened out, with FSR3 being enabled in more and more games. But okay, so but until then, it's hard for me to recommend getting the RX 7600 or 7700S unless the price is significantly undercutting the competition for the same features. All right, so 74 degrees on the GPU is very good. 2535 for the GPU boost clock is great considering we only have a 50/100 overclock right now. 130 to 140 watts, 126, 120. So the wattage on an RTX 4070 will oftentimes bounce around the 115 to 140 mark in these high-end laptops. But the boost clock realistically can max out at 2500 pretty much at like 115 watts. It's not really necessary to go all the way to the 140 mark, at least not entirely all the time. If you want to overclock the whole system, I do think it will overclock a bit better with a full wattage RTX 4070, so you can probably go to the full 200/300 overclock, no problem, and boost your boost clock up to maybe 2700 or something. We could try doing that and seeing if it's stable real quick. Let's just slap a 200/300 overclock in here. And now our boost clock, 2640, 2800, and did we crash? Looks like we may have crashed. Pushing the limits of the GPU already. All right, that's fun. I always love doing that. So it's not really, like sometimes, it may be, honestly, it may be just fine. It's just that when you change your overclock in the middle of a application running already, it can be a lot more dicey and can cause a crash. So, but generally speaking, I think most RTX 4070s would be able to handle a 200/300 overclock, but not all of them, okay? So some of them are going to struggle and crash, but everyone I've tested so far has been able to do at least 150, so it's interesting. Usually 200 to maybe 225 is where they start crashing. Pushing the limits of the system, of whatever laptop I'm testing, is always fun. Let's go ahead and load Time Spy again. Okay, so we're loading Time Spy in it again. Let's go ahead and see how loud our max fans are. The fan noise will not change depending on load, so we can go ahead and see right now how loud those fans are. Keep in mind, baseline decibels is currently 42.2 decibels. .59 decibels basically is pretty loud for a max fans. That's very loud for a max fans. We've been seeing a lot of max fans for 2024 laptops peaking around 55 to 57. So 59 decibels, that's definitely spicier than normal. So did we just crash again when I was pulling up the Ace? Okay, there we go. Nice. We did not crash. That's good. Okay, so overall, GPU temps rocking, looking great. I think we were 75 earlier. We just started. We're at 60s right now, but still very good. 64 for the CPU, absolutely phenomenal. Only 35 watts going through the CPU is not a ton of wattage, and the boost clock on the CPU not particularly high either. So it's whatever. As long as we're being GPU bound, it's fine. That's all good. Everything's running great in the system right now. Let's go ahead and switch it on over to turbo mode. We are now in turbo mode. Turbo mode is going to probably reduce the overclock that's being applied, as well as reduce our fan noise, because we were on max fans, and now it's going to be like, it's going to try to find a balance of fan noise and still hitting max performance pretty much. And you can see that our wattage is still pulling high in the 130 range. I have seen, I think, to bounce up to 140 sometimes, but 120 to 135, very common still, even in turbo mode. And those fans are much quieter now. So with the turbo fans in turbo mode, it's going to ramp the fan RPMs based on the temperatures. So what we're waiting on right now is, as these temperatures climb, say 75, well, the fans will probably tick up at 75 to be a higher RPM. And if they are 80, it's going to tick up even higher. And it's going to keep those temps hopefully in check so you don't thermal throttle. You can still keep going with maximum performance. RBRB says, how much is this laptop? This laptop is $1619 right now. It's in the thumbnail. $1,619 currently on sale. I think its retail is $1,799. So about $180 discount right now if you use the Amazon link in the description. Overall, price to performance wise from a CPU perspective is phenomenal, I think. We'll see as we do our testing today. But in my preliminary testing, it was really good. Okay, so I think we've balanced out the fan here. We're at 75 on the CPU and the GPU, roughly. 77 on the GPU. Let's go ahead and see how loud the fans are now. $53.7 watts is very good. It's very good. I do think that the fan noise on this machine kind of has a not super gentle whistle to it. I don't know, a little bit awkward whistle sounding. Can you guys hear that on the mic? It's not too bad, but I think some people might be annoyed by that. Okay, we're gonna move on to performance mode. So performance mode, it's gonna drop our wattage. So we are now in performance mode. Performance mode is going to drop our wattage down significantly, down to 80 watts. Our boost clock also dropping down to 2000. 67 degrees on the GPU, 74 on the CPU. 33 watts through the CPU still is good. Surprisingly, good amount of wattage going through there still. Performance, much lower. Like our boost clock is now, 550 points less on average, roughly. 500-ish points less, depends on the moment when you measure it. Temperatures, though, right in line. Mid 70s, low 70s for the GPU, 75 for the CPU. It's phenomenal. Really great. And the laptop is super quiet right now, actually. Chat, you probably can barely hear it now. Okay, so let's go ahead and back this out. "44 decibels in a 42 decibel room is insanely quiet for a performance mode." That is really good. I'm not gonna lie, that is really, really quiet. Let's see how quiet silent mode gets, okay? So silent mode is gonna drop our wattage even more. I'm thinking, let's see what we get. I don't know if it's gonna be playable or not, because silent mode oftentimes completely neuters the performance of these laptops down to unplayable frames. But right now it's actually looking pretty dang good. 55 watts is still a decent amount of wattage for an RTX 4070. 1700 on the boost clock, 66 degrees on the GPU, 31 still on the CPU. So overall, still 85 watts total system power. That's good. 75 degrees on the CPU. Very impressed. Silent mode, that's a lot of performance for a silent mode. Let's go ahead and see how loud that is now. Well, it's not much quieter. It's only 1.5 decibels or 1/2 of a decibel quieter. So if you needed performance on a fairly quiet system, just use performance mode. It'll give you more chops for your effort. Okay, so there's your fan mode testing. Let me check if I can check out with. I'm gonna check in with chat real quick. RBRB says, please explain about GCC, Gigabyte Computer Company, in Gigabyte Laptops blue screen crash. I'm not sure which thing you're specifically referring to for your blue screen crash. There's a sale for Legion Pro 5 for €1,500 Intel i7, 32 gigs of RAM, 1 terabyte RTX 460. I'm going to use my laptop for 3D modeling, rendering. Do you think it'd be a good one? I think the Pro 5 is good. I think that is a good choice as well. This laptop could also be an excellent option for that type of thing, especially if your modeling software utilizes CPU performance heavily. Then this one would probably be an even better option than the Legion Pro 5. Because of that. But if it's GPU focused, then getting the more powerful GPU is probably the way to go, or maybe a better quality display if it's the same price. Could be another way to go. All right, let's move into the 8 to 64 RAM speed and CrystalDiskMark SSD, as well as Cinebench and TimeSpy actual scores that we got. Here we go. Okay, so pull the laptop in closer. All right, so first up, let's do the 8 to 64 RAM speed test. All right, we're gonna have to turn off our overlay for a moment here. Okay, so this RAM speed, not amazing. The read, write, and copy at least is on the slower side. For DDR5 memory that I've tested so far this year, I think this might be the slowest memory speed I've tested actually. That said, the latency at 94.5 nanoseconds is very good. So from a latency perspective, which can be very important for games, that's very good. And the read, write, and copy speed is still probably plenty fast enough for loading games anyway. I don't think you'll run into any problems with this memory. But when you're needing to do big file access moves, it might be a little bit slower than the competition. CrystalDiskMark tests the 1 terabyte SSD included on the system. 4.9 gigs, 2.89 write. Very fast. Extremely fast SSD. It's not the fastest we've tested. The fastest we've tested would be the RAID 0 MSI Titan 18HX, which was like 13,000 something. And we've had faster single SSDs be like 7,000. But still, this is fast enough to where you're not going to run into any disk bottlenecks pretty much in typical day-to-day use, and things will load very, very fast. Now, Cinebench R24, we got 10,000, these are 10-minute scores, I believe. 10,457 for the GPU, 1,681 for the CPU, which is very good. And then single core was 110, which is also pretty good. Cinebench R23, this is a 10-minute score. 33,272. Whew, that is a spicy score. Yeah, single core 1,860 is a good score, but not necessarily amazing. Yeah, the multi-score is insane for a $1,600 laptop. That is insane. Such good CPU performance. Now we're going to go ahead and actually load Cinebench R23 and do some side-by-side benchmarking and see what the power limits, temperatures, and all of that are like on the system. So we're pulling up HW info as well as, I think, process less. So let's make sure that we are installed there. So those tests on Cinebench R23, we're not done with process lasso. Keep that in mind. I usually use process lasso to make sure that Windows is not interrupting the CPU performance of Cinebench R23. Okay, so here we are, Cinebench R23. We're gonna do a multi-score run. Let me go ahead and shut down Steam and Epic Games and Spider 5 Elite and Dolby Access. And we're also going to go to manual mode here. And we're going to put the fans to max. Currently, the CPU is set to max. 135. We are max. Okay. So that is going to be as high a CPU performance as it goes. While we were doing all those things, we managed to get a score of 31,900. But let's go ahead and see how we do if we just focus only on the laptop. Focus the laptop only on Cinebench R23 window. Again, we're using Process Lasso. We'll pull the temps up in a second, Boy Scoob. 34,221. Holy schmokies. 34,221. All right, let's do another run and let's pull up the temps. So here is the core clocks. Right there. I can pull these up here. Pull this down to here. So we're hitting 4.6 gigahertz on all of the cores, all 16 cores. 95 degrees, and we're reaching thermal throttling at that degree. We're hitting 135 watts of power. So what's happening is this system maxes at 135 watts. So 135 will hit 135, and then we'll down the wattage. We'll thermal throttle down from 135. Looks like we're throttling down to 124, 123. Wow, 33,900 for our score that run. So, I mean, if you want to know like what a 10-minute run is like, I already did those, and I just showed you them a moment ago. I can pull them up again in case someone wants to see them again. And what a single core run is like, because I did that as well. But yeah, you're basically looking at some thermal throttling, bringing us down to 120 watts or so going through the Ryzen chip, but we're still hitting 34,000. And that's without any undervolting or overclocking of any kind. This is all stock. 37,000 is probably achievable with some optimization with UXTU. $33,900 again. Absolutely phenomenal CPU performance. The only downside is that we're not able to let the CPU run at max speed. It's like running at 97% max speed, but we're just basically not quite hitting max power limit. We're not hitting max power limit because of thermal throttling. I'll set it to a 10-minute test. We're not going to do the full 10 minutes, but we'll just let it run a little bit, and I will reset the averages. So that way we can see what our averages for the power limit is. I think this is our primary question. What's our wattage going to look like after an extended period? Because we're going to basically hit that thermal limit of 95 and hang out there. You know, every run looks like we're going to be jumping up and then back down to around the 120 mark. And then, of course, the run resets and it goes back up again. We're looking at 118.07 right now. Omar says, the fans seem annoyingly whistly. Does it seem how does it seem to you in person? I agree. They're not the best acoustically sounding fans. They are. I think I hear the fan motor. I think whirring is what it is. I hear that whirring sound. It's not the. Usually, I prefer to just to hear the whoosh sound, but it sounds almost like a server fan whirring kind of sound. So 117 watts. You can see our boost clocks on the CPU cores, 4.5 gigahertz approximately right now. 116 watts, 95 degrees Celsius. I mean, it's phenomenal performance overall. Laptop cooler could boost our CPU performance further. You know, it would add more airflow to the CPU. That would give us slightly more headroom to push the wattage higher on the CPU. There's a deal on a VivoBook X16 Pro with a i9-13980HX 4070 for $1099. Do you think it's worth it? I'd have to know what the CPU wattage looks like on that VivoBook X16. I have not tested that ever, and also the GPU wattage. I'm not sure. I'm guessing it's probably not ultra high performance. Usually VivoBooks are more portability focused, I think. And not max performance focused, but those specs for the money sound phenomenal. $1099 for those specs sounds phenomenal. But I would just be questioning, you know, what's the actual real world performance you get out of it? I bet it's not probably over 30,000 in Cinebench, for example. Bebop says, do you have a tutorial for using the manual mode in Armory crate with a 4070 or similar? I mean, I kind of just showed you a bit of a tutorial, not super in-depth, I guess, but it's pretty in-depth a few minutes ago. All right, so basically 116, 117 for our wattage, but absolutely phenomenal performance overall. All right, and a Cinebench R23 10-minute test is this. That's what a 10-minute test looks like in Cinebench R23. 33,272. That's without process lasso. So it'd actually be a little higher with process lasso probably. So keep that in mind. Very, very good CPU performance for 1619. All right, so it's time to do our time spy run. It's time for the time spy run. It'd be cool if Steam would load for me. There we go. Okay. Boy Scoop says, are you going to lock the CPU at base clock and see the temps? No, boy, I'm not going to do that today. But that would significantly undercut the temps because that would also reduce the power going through the CPU dramatically. And I'm sure the temps would be really good. The base clock, I'm sure, is much lower than the 4.5, 4.6 gigahertz we were doing there. So Johnny the Rabbit says, undervolting can also help lowering the wattage and better temps, plus laptop cooling pad and the i8 laptop cooler. Yeah. If you did all those things, I could see pushing 36, 37,000 regularly being pretty common. Be very good. Mark says 120 watt on the GPU and 105 watt on the GPU. I think you meant CPU with one of those. I'm not sure. Overall, that's not terrible, Mark. But it's not amazing, right? Like the performance could be a lot higher if it could go to like 240 watt combined. It is only an RTX 4070, I guess. So depends on the game. Turn our overlay back on. All right, let's go ahead and run Time Spy again. So this will be the actual benchmark tests now. Mark, I mean, that sounds like great value for your money, I guess is the main thing. As long as the display is still good as well. And you like the overall build and ports that it has with it. Wondering, is there anything that the 7940HS struggles to run? So the 7940HS is an 8-core, 16-thread CPU, focused mainly for more thinner, lighter laptops, but still fairly high performance. All right. So that's what that CPU is. The one we have in this laptop is the 7940HX, which is 16 cores, 32 threads. Just changing that one letter from S to X completely changes the CPU. The X CPUs are the Dragon range for the 7940 series, and they will translate to a lot higher multi-core performance and a lot higher power limits. The HS, 7940HS, is still a fast CPU. It'll still do just about everything that the more core and more powerful CPU can do. It's just going to do it at a slower speed. So notice that our boost was hanging around 2550 almost the whole time, but our wattage was basically hanging out at 120. Very interesting. Did you undervolt and use a cooling pad, Donald? No, we did not, but if you did, it would definitely boost performance. The 7940HS has better idle battery life. Yes, if you're after battery life, going for the HS model is definitely the way to go. Yeah, especially performance on battery life. Both of them, I mean, both will be really good, probably performance on battery life, but being able to browse the web and not suck lots of juice up helps when you only have 8 cores versus 16 cores that you have to keep powered. So overall, temps right now are phenomenal, in the 60s for the GPU, 60s for the CPU, 130 watts, bouncing between 120 and 140 watts for the GPU, 2550 for the boost clock, and this is with a 50/100 overclock that is on the GPU by default from Asus. Very good performance overall for an RTX 4070. Our CPU is providing enough throughput to where we're 100% GPU utilized, which is great to see. And the CPU is only using 35 watts to do it, which means it's being pretty dang power efficient about it. So that's good. So overall, system seems to be tuned correctly in the initial impressions in the Time Spy test. And I'm thinking we're going to have a pretty good score here, but we'll see. I have an A15 with a 6800H and a 3070 Ti, and my CPU temp is like 60 to 70 idle, 90 to 95 under load. Is it okay? Should I do something with thermal paste? Thermal paste, clean the fans, maybe adjust which fan profiles you use. Those things could all be part of it. 13,134 for our GPU score, 12,615 for the CPU score. Those are some good scores. Over 13,000 with only a 50/100 overclock is good for an RTX 4070. It's not amazing necessarily. It's right up there with where it should be. With an overclock, we could probably push 13,500 for our GPU score, which is the most important score here. CPU score, 12,600 is still good, but it's not as good as the Intel i9 equivalents for gaming. The Ryzen chip, at least for Time Spy scores, the Intel i9 will get more like 16 to 19,000, depending on the power limit. 12,600, not particularly high for a CPU score in Time Spy. Okay. So we have done everything down to Apex Legends. Let's get into some games now. The fun part for me. I love gaming, so this is awesome. All right. Repositioning the camera. Beautiful. All right. Okay, let's get into the firing range. So I see a question from HM says, can you recommend 3 decent laptops that won't break bank, interior, exterior rendering, and 3D modeling, like light gaming, looking for a decent laptop? Any suggestions? So with 3D modeling, usually you just need GPU focused performance, but it depends on what you're modeling probably. Maybe sometimes you'll want the CPU too. So I would say Legion Pro 5i is just a great recommendation in general. And so that would be probably my number 1. My number 2 for 3D modeling would be something maybe with a higher quality display as well. You could go with like the Strix G17 I talked about earlier in this live stream. You could also, if it's 3D modeling, you might want to try to get to an RTX 4080 if you have the money, which will run you just shy of $2,000. And if you can do that, that will boost your performance pretty massively, especially for 3D rendering and media encoding. There is 2 encoders on the 4080 and 4090, where the 4070 and below only has 1. So you can literally get double the NVIDIA rendering performance sometimes, you know, depending on what application and how it's optimized. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at our settings. Full screen, 2560 by 1600. VSync disabled. We're going to be running at max settings. There we go. All right, so everything is maximum settings now. Let's go ahead and see what we get for our FPS. $150, you know, keep in mind our target FPS is ideally 165, and this is, you know, QHD, right? So QHD plus 2560 by 1600. It's a high resolution for an RTX 4070, and it's handling it really well. Overall, 1% lows are great. One little blip there, but generally this is very smooth. And I would say aiming is very good. Let's go ahead and see if we can push our 1% lows as high as 165. Now, doing a quick movement speed test. This display has G-Sync. It's looking pretty good. I'm seeing a little bit of smearing on the display, but it's not bad. And we're not at max settings yet. Let's go ahead and go to low. Okay, so here we are at low, 199, 175. Woo! That is really good. It definitely feels a bit more responsive now. I think this is going to be a great system for playing a game like Apex Legends. Go ahead and turn the sound on again here. $204, 166. So we're staying above our 1% lows on the display's refresh rate. Because we're basically saying 165 hertz refresh rate. We want 165 for our 1% low in the most ideal scenario. And we're doing that right now. So that's really great. Let's go ahead and go to the lobby and get into a match. Is the GPU overclocked? We have a 50/100 overclock. That is part of the default overclock from Asus in manual mode. Yeah, so HM, if you were to go for something slightly more expensive, like say $2,000 was your budget, the Legion Pro 7i with an RTX 4080 would be an excellent choice. Because you can get the i9 with that. So for CPU and GPU, you get both and still somewhat portable. Another option would be like the Acer Predator Helios 16, I believe Neo 16. And then there's a lot of different options, quite frankly. I check my laptop list down below, and I would say look at the top deals so you can try to get a good deal. Well, we did the murder. All right, I have reset. Our FPS counter is going fresh now. Came through with the flank there. We're not ready for that. Teammate helped clean them up there. I am nearly dead. This is a really bad spot to heal, but go teammate. Whee! Performance is excellent. 223, 163 for our 1% lows. Like I said, that's really close to the max optimal FPS you could possibly get. I'm dead here. Too many people at once. They were ready for me. I was not ready for them. They were just sitting there camping. Oh, he didn't miss. Annihilated me.
Don't worry, I have returned automatically.
Okay, we'll let this live play through and then we'll move on to the next game. But 2500 for our boost clock, 102, 107 for our wattage. GPU bound, our CPU is keeping right up there with our GPU. Things are looking great overall. Nothing to complain about. So overall, very impressed with the Apex Legends performance. Giant thumbs up. Let's move on to the next game. Going to be Baldur's Gate 3. Jericho says, I'm looking for a laptop for higher graphics, gaming, and 3D modeling and light tasks. I looked at the MSI Vector with the i9 and 4080 GPU, or another MSI device with the RTX 4070. Is there a big difference? I would say the main thing is with the Vector series, the 2023 version of the Vector had a really bad display quality. So if your focus is not on display quality, maybe it's still worth it. But if you want good display quality, the 2024 version, I believe, had a much better QHD 100% sRGB display that was higher brightness. The 2023 version was like 250 nits with only 69% sRGB or something. It was very low and very dim, so not great. I want a cheap RTX 4080 around 12K Polish. Live in Poland and prices of laptops here are high. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean the Vector is definitely one of the ones that is going to be on the more cost-effective side to potentially get into, you know? So I hear you. It's a good option for anyone that's looking to get a good balance of performance and pricing. So we're doing the Ultra Graphics preset, DLSS on quality, and we're going to go into our game. So for this resolution, I'm hoping we get over 150. Maybe close to 200. If we can bust 200, that'd be amazing. But let's see what we get. Okay, so 183, 132 for our averages so far. Very good. Initial averages. Let's go ahead and end turn. Now, typically this game has quite a few 1% low stutters. We only actually went down to 60 for our 1% low. Switching characters, let's see if we go down to the 30s. 30s is very common. We did have some stutters there, but it didn't register too much of an effect on our 1% lows. Must have been very brief stutters. Definitely, you can see those visual stutters sometimes. There, now we went down to 30 for our 1% lows. 159, 35. Overall, obviously, it's still going to be a very good gaming experience in here in Baldur's Gate 3. It's going to be hard to complain about this gaming experience. I mean, it's going to be awesome, quite frankly. So, watch out. Baldur's Gate 3, giant thumbs up. Let's move on to Cyberpunk 2077. A game that might not be as awesome. Might need some more tweaking with this laptop. So, Johnny the Rabbit. MSI Vector with 4080 and i9 with Full HD Plus is a back for the buck. I think you meant bang for the buck regarding performance, but screen quality is bad, plus annoying fan noise. Yeah, Johnny, that sums it up pretty well. It's a pretty nice chassis too. Like the hinge is really nice. The keyboard feels nice, and it's like the same build quality as the more expensive GE series. So I really like that. It's just the display quality. Like if you could just get a different display in there, it'd be like way easier to recommend. Like fan noise is not usually too much of a deal breaker, because usually all high performance gaming laptops at least have somewhat louder fans, in my experience. So I'm not usually too worried about that. I'm mainly concerned with like, okay, well, if we can't have good visuals on it because the display is so bad, it's kind of hard to recommend. It's harder to recommend. It's always this giant caveat with the certain MSI laptops. I think MSI is working on it though. They're working on changing their displays, and a lot of their 2024 laptops have better displays. So I really appreciated that about their updates at CES. Okay, we're going to ray tracing ultra defaults. All right, ray construction on, frame generation on, DLSS down to quality. Okay, so quality. Boom. Ray tracing ultra, DLSS on quality, frame generation enabled. Textures are on high. I think that's going to be a problem, but let's find out. Let's see what our FPS is like. Sasa says, I'm not sure if I can ask you about it, but prices in Poland are almost double for especially this year laptops, and I wonder if it's a good idea to order from abroad. So I know that a good amount of people do order from abroad. They do a trip to America and they buy a laptop because it's cheaper to go to America and buy a laptop there than bring it back. But that's obviously going to vary depending on your country's rules and customs and laws. And you might have to pay customs, especially if you get if the customs see that you have a laptop, and you didn't have one going in, whatever. I don't know. I'm not an expert in all that. I'm not going to advise anyone to do that. Don't want to get anyone in trouble. But I know people do it. It's a thing that is done. And obviously it can be good for some people. So we definitely saw some 1% low stutters going on for a while there. We're at 7.9 gigs on the VRAM, maxing that VRAM out at 8 gigs. It's struggling because as it moves around the world, it needs to pull in new assets, and it can't do that when it's already completely full. So, wow, we're actually at more than 8 gigs of VRAM right now. 8.1. We haven't seen that before. We got free VRAM, guys. We went above the maximum. So yeah, 49 is actually a lot better than the HP Omen and Zephyrus G14 got. I think we got 40 with those, or sub 40. It was pretty bad with those RTX 4070 laptops. 49, I feel like that's actually not bad at all. But yeah, that's not good enough. If you want to actually play this game with frame gen, it needs to be closer to 90 FPS. So to do that, we're looking at dropping our performance, our DLSS down to maybe performance, at least balanced. And we're probably looking at going down to, let's just say we go down to high settings. All right, go to high settings, DLSS on balanced, frame generation enabled. So we're disabling ray tracing, and we're dropping our render resolution using DLSS to be lower. Let's see what we get now. Let's see if we get at least 80, 90. That'll be more playable. I prefer over 90 though, typically, anytime I use frame gen. So let's see what we get. We're rendering now. Whoa, really? 125 is actually higher than I was expecting to go. Disabling ray tracing and DLSS from quality to balance, those are the two changes we made. And now we're rocking it at 125 FPS. 1% low is also looking much better. We have one stutter right there, but generally the frame time graph is looking much cleaner. VRAM usage down to 7 gigs instead of, pushing over 8, like literally went above 8 in the last run. So yeah, this is going to be a great gaming experience in Cyberpunk 2077. Definitely one I could recommend, as long as you're okay turning off ray tracing. If you really want to play with ray tracing in games like Cyberpunk, you're going to need to invest more money to go to an RTX 4080. That's the truth. So if you're okay with turning off ray tracing and playing it without ray tracing, it's great performance. So no problem, really. In my opinion, no problem playing. It's still a very enjoyable gaming experience. 124.7 FPS overall for our average, and pretty dang high 1% lows. Love it. Let's move on to Dead Space. So let's see how we do in Dead Space. Blazy says, sorry if you answered already. Thought about MSI Stealth AI 14 and 16. Looks interesting. 2024. Yeah, very similar to the 2023 versions from what I can see. Maybe slight display changes and I believe a slight chassis change. overall, like between the 2023 and 2024 version, if the 2023 version goes on sale, I'd probably say snap that up because it's not that big of an improvement compared to the 2024 version. The bigger question is it better for you to go for something like the Zephyrus G14 or maybe the Lenovo, I don't think it's Yoga, but it's like 14.5 inch Slim 5, I think is what they call it. It's got the OLED 120 hertz as well. That one's on sale right now, I think for like $1,100. And that's probably the way I would go. I mean, I haven't done the review on the Slim 5 Lenovo yet, but it looks super promising. OLED 120 hertz and a fairly compact portable chassis. So yeah, I mean, I would lean towards going with the G14 or the Lenovo Slim 5 over the Stealth, unless the Stealth is on sale big time. So the Stealth really needs to like undercut the pricing of the Slim 5 or the Zephyrus G14 for it to be worth getting by at least, I don't know, 50 to $100. Otherwise, I would say just if it's the same price, just go. Probably would rather recommend you to go with the Zephyrus G14 or Lenovo Slim 5. But I mean, I liked the Stealth 14 that I reviewed. It was good. It was a good all around system. It's just not quite as good, I don't think, as the G14. I like the keyboard better, I like the speakers a little better, like the display quality better on the G14 for 2023 and 2024 version. So, all right, so we are in ultra graphics, DLSS on quality, QHD plus resolution. We're doing 74 FPS on average, 31 for our 1% lows. Our wattage on the GPU is staying pretty high, above 100. 100% GPU utilization. We're doing 60 watts through the CPU. This game can be pretty CPU bound depending on the system, the resolution and everything. So I'm glad that we're not really being CPU bottlenecked here. That's a great sign. Let's go ahead and walk our official benchmark, which is right here. 73 average FPS, 33 for a 1% low. Notice the frame time graph looks stuttery, but in reality, it's actually much better for some reason. It's like a bug, I think, with MSI Afterburner. I don't know. It's really weird. But the game is playing smooth, and it does not appear to be stuttering as much as 34 1% lows. So okay, so 76, 34, that's going to be playable. There's no frame gen in this game. You know, playing it is smooth. It's responsive. I can look around. It's a good experience. That's ultra settings with DLSS on quality. So that's good enough for me. Yeah. So Blazy says, I think they have OLED, but as they are thin, probably very warm like Zephyrus, but Omen Transcend also looks cool. I don't think I can recommend the Omen Transcend unless it's on a pretty significant discount versus the competition. Just because of the less ports, lower power limit on the GPU, and doesn't look as good. Like, just not as stylish to me, and the speakers are not as good as the G14 2024 version. There's a lot of trade-offs. I made some detailed reviews comparing the G14 and Omen 14. I recommend checking those out. Okay, so here we are. Dragon's Dogma 2, the latest controversial RPG. We've got 2560 by 1600 resolution, DLSS on quality, ray tracing is enabled. We're on high default settings. We're loading into the city. Okay, so first we're gonna run over here, more towards the wilderness area. This will be more like an optimal, less CPU bound example maybe of the gameplay. All right, so we're averaging in the 70s. All right. 75. All right, 1% lows at 30. Still pretty good. Definitely playable. All right, so now we're going to run into the city. We're going to run into the city. The city is where we're going to run into tons of NPCs, and that's where the problems will begin with the stuttering. Usually, we'll see how this Ryzen chip handles it. Looks like we are getting some stutters going in right there. Frame time not looking as clean. Still averaging 60, but it's coming down. We hit 40s, big stutters. Holy schmoly, some stutters there. Lots of stutters. Lots and lots of stutters as we walk up here. 53 and 1 for a 1% low. It's pretty bad. That's very bad. Look at this frame time graph right here. It's nuts. So yeah, this is a game not very optimized. Very CPU bound. Notice that we're only at 60% GPU utilization, means that we're being bottlenecked by our CPU. 90 degrees on the CPU, 61 on the GPU. And yeah, if we wanted more performance here, we would need a faster CPU, maybe faster memory. Also notice that our VRAM is also maxing. We're 7.8 gigs. Pretty interesting that our VRAM is being so bottlenecked. Another game where you might need to turn textures down to medium or low. All right, let's move on to God of War. So Dragon's Dogma, it's playable most of the time. It's just certain areas of the game are going to turn into stuttery messes with the RTX 4070 and this combo. That is true for almost all of the laptops I've tested, though, with Dragon's Dogma. It's kind of a crapshoot a little bit in a way. How's the laptop containing the R9? It's doing pretty good. We are heating up in loading screens. I mean, it's staying within safety temperature ranges, maxing out at 95 degrees sometimes. But for the most part, in any type of typical gaming workload, extended workloads, it's usually really good. All right, so we're going to Ultra Settings. Display, 2560 by 1600, 16 by 10, DLSS on quality. All that's correct. Let's go ahead and load into the game. Can't blame the laptop there, to be honest. Dragon's Dogma is not stable. Yeah, it's pretty crappy. Game optimization, 100% agree. Not really blaming the laptop too much, but some gaming laptops will handle that better, right? Faster memory, faster speed CPUs. Mainly higher clock speed CPUs. I think that's going to handle that kind of interaction in the city a little bit better. Okay. Here we go. So, no frame gen here, so we're okay with 60 FPS as our FPS target. Though, again, it is an action one, so I probably would prefer 90 FPS on average. But, I mean, it's G-Sync enabled. It's not going to be a problem playing it at 70. So we average 70, 42. That's good enough, but if you wanted a high FPS experience, just go in here to graphics, drop it down to original, and wabam waboom, we're over 100 FPS now at QHD. Original, of course, just lowering some of the graphical settings, the textures, and some other stuff, so makes it easier to run, but very fluid gameplay experience now. Moving into Helldivers 2, the huge alien swarm eradication, bug eradicator army game. It's a super fun game. I have played quite a bit of Helldivers 2. And let's see how we do. Okay, so let's go ahead and go over our settings. RTX 4070, 2560 by 1600. Render scale, we're going to do quality. Graphics is the Ultra Graphics preset, except for textures, which are set on high. So this game, the devs are smart enough to where they check your graphics card's VRAM and they will automatically lower your textures for you automatically, which is awesome. I really appreciate the devs doing that. Right now in the ship, over 100 FPS is, wow, that's good. I'm actually really impressed with that. Let's go to a different mission. We'll go eradicate terminate swarm. Sure, that sounds good. Juan Cruz says, first time seeing you live. I'd love to leave a suggestion for future reviews I always worry about. I mean, just go ahead and make the suggestion. Cool, but can you manually put textures to ultra? Yeah, you can. You can, but it's just going to be a bad idea to do that. See, I can set it. I can set it, but it's not going to. It's probably not a good idea. Adam R says, how different is this from the A17 with the Ryzen 9 40HS in terms of performance? Well, Adam, this has literally double the cores. So, I mean, this is going to be a lot higher performance in terms of multi-core rendering performance. In terms of gaming performance, it's going to be pretty similar because you're not going to, very few games are going to be able to take advantage of more than 8 cores. So from a gaming perspective, most games, no difference. In a handful of games, it will be a difference. Really, you're going to see the difference. Hold on, I'm focusing here. I hope we have teammates join us here. This might be a very fast run if we don't have any teammates. Okay, we got a teammate joining us. That's good. Sorry, what were we saying? So, yeah, the 7940HS, way better battery life on that is going to be really helpful for you. If you need battery life. If you don't care about battery life, not really a big deal. I blew up my own gun. That was super smart. I see a bug hole opening up here. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at some performance. I just reset our FPS counter, and let's do a little closer look at that here in a moment. I blew myself up with my own autocannon. That was really nice. So 94 FPS, 83.41% low is phenomenal, super incredible, and way smooth. Average FPS 96 is just, it's really good. I gotta say the gameplay on this is also really good. Like it feels incredibly smooth and very responsive. So temperature 70, 78, also very good. Wattage pull for the GPU is very good. Very GPU bound. It's great to see. Reload. Juan, I see you wrote a thing out. I'll check it out in here in a moment, if I can. I'm just trying to see if we can finish this mission here before. Okay. Okay, so Juan says, can you show non-native resolution at 4K? It's not a bad idea. I do that sometimes. I just don't have time usually to show too many benchmarks. I can only show so many with how much time I have. Because like otherwise my live streams, they can get like 5 hours long sometimes. Ah! The guy just murdered me. Oh, God. Go. I want to go over. I need to call in reinforcements for my teammates. Come on, teammates. Gotta reload, no. So we're at 92% bugs killed. We've almost got it. So let's finish out this mission. The hunter killed me. Juan, that's not a bad idea. I have done similar-ish types of videos. Okay. Teammate called in a big bomb. Killed me and him. There's our ship. Let's go get in it. All right, we're on board. Let's go. Get on the ship. What is A2 doing? There we go. All right. Yeah, so surprisingly, some of the 40, 50, 40, 60, 40, 70, 40, 80, 40, 90, you might be surprised at how good of a FPS you can get on like a 40, 50, 40, 60 with 4K. Many games over 60 FPS probably, but mainly older titles. And only mainly lower and medium settings probably. Okay, so that's Helldivers 2. Super fun game. Really enjoy that game. And very good experience. Over 90 FPS. In ultra settings at QHD, like giant thumbs up, in my opinion. I tried using Alt F4 to close it, but I didn't want to close. We're on to Hogwarts Legacy. So Hogwarts Legacy, a game where it's the Harry Potter universe, but it's like, I believe, pre-Harry Potter. Like a few hundred years ahead of, behind Harry Potter when he was alive. And you're a student in the and you can pick your house, you can go on all kinds of side quests and main adventures. The main adventure is actually pretty good. I did beat it all the way through, and I got some really good equipment, played a bunch of the side quests. I have not beat every side quest in the game. That would actually be pretty fun to do. Almost all of the content in the game was really fun. So I definitely can recommend Hogwarts Legacy. It's a phenomenal game, especially if you're a Harry Potter fan. But the problem with Hogwarts Legacy was when it came out initially, it was a really badly optimized game. Lots of 1% low stutters, lots of struggling to get the game to run well without lots of tweaking the settings. And thankfully, the game has gone through a lot of optimization, and it is quite a bit better now. Okay, so we're going to try running everything on ultra settings. See if everything runs smoothly. I used to have to turn textures to low with the RTX 4070, but I think they optimized the textures. Let's see. We'll have to watch the VRAM. See if we peak our VRAM. Oh, it looks like we're going to peak our VRAM. I don't know. Let's see what our 1% low stutters are like. Okay, ultra settings, ray tracing enabled, DLSS on quality, frame generation enabled. Looks like stutters are pretty brutal. 3%, 3 for a 1% low. Now, this game is definitely a game you can get playable frames, and I'll show you which settings to turn off to get those playable frames. But right now, we're out of RAM. We're at 15 out of 16 gigs of RAM used, and we're out of VRAM. 7 out of 8 gigs of VRAM allocated at least. Probably out of VRAM at least. So all these NPCs, all these characters running around here, all the quests you have to do here, it's a lot of game assets for this game to handle with only 8 gigs of VRAM and 16 gigs of DDR5 memory. So really you want 32 gigs of RAM, and ideally you want more like 12 or 16 gigs of VRAM, depending on what resolution you're going to play at. If you're going for 4K, you might even want more than 16 gigs of VRAM. So, okay, so I always do a run through just to see, and I mean, I don't think we're going to be able to. I try to load everything in, but it can't hold all the assets in. So the only solution to get a smooth frame rate, well, we crashed there. The only solution, basically, turn off ray tracing, number one. Number two, probably turn textures to medium in this scenario. But ray tracing will reduce your VRAM utilization. It'll reduce how much RAM needs to be utilized. Let's try Hogwarts Legacy one more time and see if we can get a more optimized run going. Because I really like to show you that we can at least get 100 FPS at QHD resolution at some setting and see what it looks like. Kurteen says, is there a huge performance difference between the HS and HX Intel processors? Yeah. So HS, usually it's H and HX for Intel. For AMD, it's HS and HX. But for both Intel and AMD, the HX version of the processors are usually more cores and usually allow more clock speed and more wattage And so basically the HX processor from Intel, for example, allows you to undervolt it, where the H processor usually does not. That allows you to get an even bigger performance gap above the default, typically. Okay, so if we were to go for perfect FPS in this game, we're going to go to DLSS on quality. DLSS on balanced. Textures will go to medium. And then we're just going to go ahead and disable ray tracing. And those changes alone, I think, is going to get us at least 90 FPS and 30 for a 1% lows. But let's see. Okay, looks like 120. Looks like we're still running out of DDR5 memory. So that's still going to cause some stuttering if it can't hold all of the NPCs inside of the RAM. So stuttering is still an issue, but man, it is much better in terms of average FPS, and you're just getting these occasional stutters. You might get like 15, 20 seconds in between a stutter. And keep in mind that this is the most demanding area of the game with the most NPCs in a close space. So it's pretty much the worst case scenario here. It's going to be so much better out in the wild where you're going to play most of your gameplay against bad guys and stuff. Okay, so we were doing really good until we had that one stutter there. 113 average FPS. We're doing our actual benchmark run now. 52 for our 1% low now. Oh, and then we got another big stutter. Oh, man. Okay, so 113, 4 for a 1% low. Stutters are still an issue. We're actually not maxing our DDR5 memory anymore. Very interesting. Overall, we are tending to be a bit CPU bound. We're not hitting 100% GPU utilization. And I'd say the Ryzen chip's not quite handling this game perfectly, but it's still pretty good. It's going to be a good gaming experience. You could try setting everything to medium, to reduce how many NPCs are in the world, or maybe high. Or maybe you could try just changing that setting specifically. Population quality, you could go to like medium. I don't think that, it said it had to reset the game. I think that may be true because I'm not seeing, seems like a normal amount of people here. But yeah, so it's not an easy game to run even now, but it's better than it was. Some of the newer laptops are able to handle it really well. Okay, so we have tested everything so far. We have Illuvium and The Witcher 3. Those are our last two games. Let's go ahead and do Illuvium next. Illuvium is a game that I'm a huge fan of. Like, it's a game that's about to come out very soon. It's a game that's kind of like Pokemon, where you go around capturing these creatures, collecting them, and you actually can own the creatures, trade them, sell them for real money. And then you can battle them against other players in PvP arenas, as well as just go explore, upgrade them, train them in the open world that they're working on putting together. So, and it's not just one game. There's going to be like at least 3 to 4 games being launched out of this. But this is very much a private beta game. Now, one of the controversial things of this game is that it is a crypto-backed game in the sense that all the assets will be stored in a blockchain. And I'm personally a big fan of that, but I like disclosing everything for everyone. And the spirit of full disclosure, I'm a person who's invested in the Illuvium project. I think it has I invest in things that I like. And I think it has tremendous potential as a game. And it's a game that I really look forward to playing when it fully releases. Okay. So, one issue with this game is asset optimization, and loading in everything can be not very optimized. So we're going to see if we can get everything to optimize here, okay? We're going to do no frame rate cap. We're going to go to graphics. Let's go to textures. We'll put those to medium, because I think textures can be a big bottleneck with this game. Everything else is on epic right now. So we're getting 90 FPS. That's pretty good, but we're getting a lot of stutters with the load in. And right now, I think we didn't crash completely. That's good. Like I said, this game is very much pre-beta. So the idea of this game is you're gonna transport into different zones of the world, and you'll go looking for resources. And I see something over here I can go gather. I think it's one of the plants. And you can harvest these things, and basically they're working on implementing all of the creatures to be inside the world, running around, and you fight them, and then you can capture them and everything. And it's just, they've gone through so many changes and iterations. I've been following the project now for over 2 years, through 2.5 years now. And the game has gone through so many improvements. I can't wait for them to actually fully launch this thing. It's going to be awesome. Okay, so we can get in this bubble and float up and then fly down. So there's all these things that your character has on you that you can, these are all the different elements that I've captured on this run. There's all of these things that I can apply to my character and my alluvials. There's helmets, boots, jetpacks, weapons you can upgrade. Here's the map overview, and there's a heat map version. And as you upgrade your stuff, you'll be able to get a better idea of where everything is. But you can see that the red areas are where the resources will be. And as you upgrade your sensors and stuff, it'll get more precise. So you can be like, okay, there's stuff, really good stuff over here. So just looking here, I'm not sure if I see anything over here right now. Hey, here's a creature that I can capture. Not sure what those will be used for in the end game. The grass in this game looks absolutely amazing. This is also built on Unreal Engine 5. So there's this really cool movement chain you can do, which is you sprint and then you slide, right? Sprint and then you slide and then you jump, and then you use your skydive, jumpsuit, wingsuit, and then you use your grav boots, and you use your grav boots again, and boom, you can get like really far. So the movement system in this game is just really, really sick. Let's go ahead and capture, gather this deposit. That gave me something. So I'm almost out of energy. I'd have to go back to home base if I want to be able to do another run. Basically, you'll pay for each run that you do. And then you'll be able to go out and capture a set amount of energy to capture resources and gather stuff. So that's the way the game will work. And then those resources and everything will be sellable and tradable. Really cool concept. I love the idea of player-owned assets and community-governed gameplay development. Okay, so that's the overworld where you actually go capture creatures. I didn't see any portals to go. I didn't see any portals to capture alluvials this time. That's okay. Let's get into. Let's go ahead and get into an arena match real quick and see how this handles the arena, which is where you do PvP battles. It's a different area of the world map, so it plays quite a bit differently. We'll go against an AI, and we'll just do like one round. And so there'll be like at the launch, there'll be like 150 different types of creatures that you can use in your battles. So here's a different, here's a starter card. This can be used to place, this can be placed on one of the alluvials. So on a takedown, gain 20 attack damage, physical attack damage, gain 300 health, 20 physical resist, and 20 energy resist. That's really good. Let's do that one. Let's do this guy, and we'll do the cat, and we'll do our hyper endurance. And we only have 25 more mastery points, and these ones cost 25. So we'll do that guy. So these are both bulwark units, and I will bond with this guy. That'll give me 3 bulwark, which will give all my guys more energy or more resistance to survive damage. So there's all kinds of different affinities and classes that you can use to combine and counter your opponents. Currently, my opponent doesn't have any affinities or classes, so I'll probably win just from the one class that I have, the bulwark class, giving my units a big advantage to survive longer. But this is a game that is all about placement, unit combinations, anticipating what your opponent is going to put on the board, and then countering what your opponent puts on the board. So that's an example of a round, and our FPS is really good. 120, 10 for a 1% load. That was a stutter from when all the creatures loaded in. Teammates gain 300 shield for 8 seconds. Let's try that. And we'll put that down there. And let's go ahead and grab another bulwark and another bulwark. That gives me 5 bulwark. And let's give my guy armor. All right, so we got 5 bulwark. Let's see how that does. And then we'll go ahead and go on to our last game, The Witcher 3. Checking chat. Clark Kent says, does the 13th and 14th gen Intel CPU video memory problem exist for laptops as well? Clark, I'm not sure which video memory problem you're talking about. You have to tell me or explain a little more in detail what you mean. I'm not sure. Looks like we're going to win again, so that's good. I mean, we're on beginner AI, so this is like easy mode. But love the graphics in this game, love the creature design. Really looking forward to seeing where this game goes and what it does. All right, so that's Illuvium. Let's move back into The Witcher 3 for our final game, and then we'll do a final summary review of everything we found out about this Asus TUF A16. Zuzu says, bro, I want to give mad respect to your content. Can you also please make a game test review on Call of Duty Warzone, as it is one of the games that's harder to run, mostly said to be CPU intensive. So Zuzu, I've done a ton of Warzone testing about 6 months ago and further back. I just got basically a little bit fed up with all of their, how you say, the controversies around the game, the performance optimization, the menus and how you use the game to get into the game, and actually like installing the game is like a pain in the butt. It's just not a very good experience for me because I try to set up so many laptops. It's one of the games that took forever to actually get into a match and takes a long time to actually test, and it's a good game. It's a fun game when you're actually playing it. I don't have any problems with the game itself. It's just it's the fact that I have to download Call of Duty 2 and then I have to click through the menu there and click into Warzone. Then it opens another game, and then usually have to restart that game, and then you have to pre-reload the shaders, and then it's like 7 steps to actually playing the game. For the first time you install it on a laptop. It's kind of bad. Okay. Witcher 3. Game of the year 2016, 8 years ago. But in 2023, they did the game, upgraded it with RTX ray tracing support, DLSS frame gen support. This is a game where I think having G-Sync is very nice and can usually make a visual difference. All right, so here we are. The thing is, right now we do have frame gen enabled, right? Let's just double check. Frame gen is enabled 2560 by 1600, right? We're on ultra settings with ray tracing enabled, DLSS on quality. So anytime I have frame gen, I usually prefer 90 FPS for the gameplay experience, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to get that high of FPS. And we are running out of VRAM right now as well. 7.3 gigs of VRAM. It's caused at least one stutter so far. Our GPU is pretty much being fully utilized at 99%. That's great. 42 watts to the CPU is good. 4.5, 4.9, 4.8, 5 gigahertz on the CPU is great for our CPU clock speed. Temps on the CPU and GPU are great. Performance is good, but 72 is not quite enough for me with frame gen enabled. So, because frame gen ends up with a lot of visual artifacts and glitches if you don't get at least 90 FPS, and then it also increases input lag, which is not great either. So, but 7156 is pretty good. All we have to do to make this better is turn off ray tracing. So this is one of the things they added in the 2023 revamp of The Witcher 3. In my opinion, it kind of makes the game a little bit not as good graphically, because the game was not originally designed with ray tracing in mind. So I'm pretty sure NVIDIA just paid them to add that as an example. So people would be like, yay, ray tracing is in more stuff. Overall, now that we've disabled ray tracing, amazing gameplay. 110 FPS, 94 for a 1% low is phenomenal. We are very close to running out of VRAM though, so I would not be surprised to see VRAM stutters. If you do run into that, lower the textures a little bit, or maybe lower the render upscale resolution. Overall, definitely can get good gameplay. We just had 2-3 stutters there though, so yeah, you probably would want to go to graphics, terrain, texture quality, high. Is that better? Let's see, if we run up here, how are we doing? Oh yeah. We haven't had a big stutter yet at all since we lowered the textures. Even though we're at 7.6 gigs of VRAM utilized, we're not actually running into hard cap stutters though, where it's really running out of RAM. So this is good. Maybe it would run out of RAM in different areas of the game though, so something to keep an eye on. Overall, that's going to be a great gaming experience, but only after disabling ray tracing. So you want to be able to play this with ray tracing and everything on Ultra, you got to go for the 4080 at QHD, obviously. You can play a full HD, no problem. So, final summary review of everything. Let's do it. Is Asus TUF A15 2024 review coming anytime soon? I'm not sure, Sasa. I'll have to see when Asus will send me the A15. M&E says, is it worth getting the Legion Pro 7i with the 7945HX instead of the 13900HX? The Legion does run the 7945HX with higher watts than the A16. I think both can be great. I think you're going to get a little bit better multi-core performance with the Ryzen. And in my experience, you get a little better gaming performance with the Intel i9. That's why I went with the Intel i9. I think both are great options. I think AMD and Intel right now are very competitive. I'd probably buy whichever one came cheaper. Or if they were the same price, I'd swing towards Intel, I think. But they're very close. It's not like it's going to be a major difference either way between them in almost anything. They'll all be within, usually 10 to 20% of each other for performance. For CPU, GPU, multi-core, single core, it's going to be very... Intel will be a little better in single core, with AMD being a little better in multi-core. So, And a lot of games can benefit from the single core of Intel a little bit more than the multi-core of AMD. So that's why I think it's a little better to go Intel if it's the same price. But that depends on what you're going to do with the laptop and like how many cores you need and what you're going to, if you're going to use them for virtual machines and stuff like that. Maybe the Ryzen chip's better because they're all fat performance cores versus efficiency cores, maybe as utilized for those tasks. So it depends. Okay, we're ready to do the final summary review. Let's do it. Okay. What's up and welcome to the final summary review for the 2024 Asus TUF A16. This has the Ryzen 9 7940HX, not to be confused with the HS, the HX version having 16 cores, 32 threads, the HS version being much more battery friendly and only 8 cores, 16 threads. So this has an RTX 4070, a QHD plus display, which means 2560 by 1600 resolution, 165 hertz refresh rate, G-Sync enabled with advanced Optimus, giant thumbs up, and we have a nice full-size keyboard, large number pad. There's so much to love about this laptop. Right now on sale for $1619. I would not be surprised if we have better sales in this laptop in the future, bringing it down to $1500. But at $1619, this is almost the very best CPU performance per dollar that money can buy out of every single laptop on the entire market. So if you're after multi-core rendering performance with a 16-core 32-thread CPU, this is one of the cheapest entries into that level of performance. Getting close to, we did get more than 34,000 in Cinebench R23 with this laptop today, but that was the first run, so it's kind of, the best run with the least thermal throttling. Anyway, we're gonna get into all of the details in this final summary review. Let's do it. Okay, so I just gave you the biggest pros and cons. This thing is phenomenal CPU value for your money, while at the same time not being too heavy, only 4.89 pounds for the laptop itself. Under 5 pounds, 16-inch display is phenomenal. We also had 430 nits brightness on that display. That's excellent. And then the only downside here, color gamut was 100% sRGB, but only about 84% DCI P3 color gamut. So if you're after video editing, graphic design, that kind of work, it's not going to be as colorful as the more expensive laptop displays out there. And there, of course, there are some laptops that are even cheaper than this with better quality displays as well. But those laptops are not going to have the same CPU performance that this one does. And I did go over 5 different competitors in the full live stream. So go back to the top deals value comparison if you want to check out those competitive options. Overall, the biggest cons to this laptop, it's a bit larger. It doesn't have maybe as good a port selection. The speakers are not as good as well. The webcam, there's no Windows Hello, and the webcam quality, not that great. So the ports, let's talk ports for a moment. No Thunderbolt 4 because this is a Ryzen chip, but also no USB 4, which is kind of the equivalent. So no super high speed USB 4. There is USB-C power delivery, and the 2 USB ports do support DisplayPort as well as G-Sync support. So those are 2 giant thumbs up. But yeah, I don't know what the power delivery level is. I'm guessing at least 100 watts, but it could be a little bit more, a little bit less. I have to actually check the tech specs on that to know for sure. Maybe I'll put it up on the screen for everyone to know. Okay, cool. During the edit. Removing the bottom was pretty dang easy. Not too many screws. There were Phillips head screws as well, but you'll need a piece of plastic to pry apart everything. There is a pop-up screw, so that one screw does not come out. It actually lifts the corner of the chassis up to make it easy to take it apart. There is a free M.2 slot. If you want to slap another SSD in this guy, you don't have to remove the existing 1 terabyte SSD, which was also very fast in our CrystalDiskMark test, 4.8 thousand megabytes per second. For our read and copy speed was like, our write speed was at 2.8K. It was very good. Overall, it's not the very best. The best right now is like around the 7,000 mark, and or if you're in RAID 0, 13, 14,000 mark, but still very, very good overall, I mean, for your money, I mean, it's not a bad SSD, and it's not going to be a problem at all, unless you're moving like absolutely huge files all the time. Because then you might want to get a little bit faster SSD. I don't know. That's it's super minor. Okay. All right. So not many options in the BIOS. You're not going to really need to go into the BIOS much with this laptop. There is a couple of overclocking options, but I've not messed with that at all. But you might be able to use some overclocking with the UXTU universal. Basically, it's like the equivalent of Intel XTU, but for Ryzen chips, and you can do some curve optimizer, which is basically like undervolting for the CPU using UXTU. So, but be careful doing that stuff because it does potentially affect your laptop, and you could fry your laptop if you change the wrong setting at the wrong time. So be very careful in UXTU. I would definitely advise caution and only recommend it for advanced users. Okay. Bloatware. This had McAfee, and it was constantly popping up telling me my subscription was expired and my computer is in danger, and it's just a scam. Asus really needs to stop. All laptop manufacturers need to stop putting antivirus on their systems, or at the very least, if there's antivirus installed, it needs to be mandatory that they're never popping up and like demanding subscription fees from users, and they're never, if it's installed in there, it shouldn't run. Like the moment the subscription runs out, why is it even running? Why is it bothering the user? Like, come on. If the user wants the protection, they can get the protection on their own if they want it or whatever. Generally, users just need to be smart with what they download, and they're usually good. Windows protection is pretty good if the user is smart about what they bring onto their system. Okay. That said, keyboard and mouse. Very nice keyboard, full size with a number pad, lots of functionality here. The main thing that's lacking with it is there's no FN lock feature to be able to switch the FN, like F1 through 12 keys to the secondary function on the fly. I really like being able to make like display brightness or volume up and down, all those stuff, mute as the primary function instead of the secondary function. So I like being able to just make the brightness a dimmer without having to press the FN and go all the way over to the F8 key to make it brighter, It makes it easier to do those things, especially if you need to do it a lot. Overall, the keyboard feels nice. It's got a soft rubber feel, not too much key travel, but it's decent. I think a lot of people will like typing on this without issue. Now, the chassis itself, very rigid in our bend test. Not much flex. Honestly, the touchpad is the flexiest part of the system. And the trackpad, as far as I can tell, is glass. It feels smooth. I don't have any issues with the trackpad. It is large and it clicks okay. The main issue with, I guess if there is an issue with the trackpad, it's just that, like I said, it's softer feeling and more bendy than your average trackpad. Yeah. Laptop control software, Armory Crate, I think is really good. We've got a lot of different options in there for manual fan modes. You can set your fan profile curves so that you can ramp and set exactly how loud you want your laptop to be. You can quick switch between those fan profiles with the F5 key and the FN key. And the different profiles landed in the usable range in fan noise. Now, the fan noise, in my opinion, is a bit on the like motory sound. I think you're hearing the fan motors, or we are hearing the fan motors kind of wind up in max fan mode. And I think it's a little bit louder in that sense. And it's not the gentle whoosh as much as it is kind of more of a actual fan motor sound a little bit at times. I mean, that is pretty normal, but I just felt like it was less whooshy than most laptops and not quite as acoustically nice to listen to. And it might bother some people out there. But mainly this was only an issue in max fan mode, which is how we tested all of our games today. Under typical workloads, it is much quieter. So max fan mode, 59 decibels. Turbo was right around 53 to 54 decibels. Performance mode, very good performance for only 44 decibels in a 42 decibel bass room. Silent mode, not much more additionally silent at 43.5 decibels. So in general, if you're after a quiet, high performance experience, I recommend the performance mode. And if you're after the ultra performance, but still reasonable sound quality, go for turbo, or set your own manual fan curves rather than doing max fans, because the temps on the laptop were actually still pretty good, in the mid 70s or high 60s in almost all of the different fan profiles. The only times we saw high temps was in CPU only heavy workloads, where we saw the Ryzen chip jump up to the 95-degree threshold, where it does thermal throttle at 95 degrees Celsius. So that's the main, I think, downside to, I guess, the laptop's cooling system. But at the same time, 95 degrees Celsius is still within safe operating temperatures for extended periods of time. I would not be concerned about that. The main downside is that you're not getting the max possible performance from the Ryzen chip, because we did set the power limit to 135, but because it is thermal throttling down, it means that it reduces the power going through the CPU down to about 116 watts instead of 135 watts, which then also reduces our boost clock on the CPU from like 4.8 or 4.9 down to like 4.5 gigahertz or so. Still, it's very good performance, and you're still getting about 95% of the possible performance of the CPU, even though it is thermal throttling. All of that said, the CPU performance was still outstanding. Over 33,000 in Cinebench R23 consistently, a 10-minute run, 33.2K, which is just nuts. It's such a high CPU score for only a $1,600 laptop. It does not really get better than that from a CPU points per dollar perspective, or much better than that, especially considering you're at the peak of what CPU points you can get in the first place. So you're getting peak value for your money, and you're getting peak performance, and it's super rare to have peak value and peak performance be in the same laptop. And that's really, I think, what makes the Asus TUF A16 unique and an interesting proposition for those of you that need high amounts of CPU cores and want a lot of threads and CPU cores. So like, you know, virtual machines, running tons of different apps at the same time, needing to render video while doing something else in Photoshop. I don't know, whatever. There's tons of different potential use applications for so many CPU cores. Running a background game server while you still want a game with good performance on the other cores. You know, there's all kinds of different potential applications for so many CPU cores. And that's really where the end user can decide, is it something that's viable or really something that's needed for them or not? And if it is, it's one of the best laptops in the mid-range price segment, I think. So let's talk 8 to 64 RAM speed. Read, write, copy, not very good, around the 50K mark. But the latency was 94.5 nanoseconds, I believe, and that is pretty good, above average, or like faster than average for the latency. The Cinebench R23, like I said, was 33.3 or K, basically 33.27K, which is insane for a multi-core performance. Single-threaded was 1860, I believe, which is still good, but not as good as what we've seen from Intel, which is pretty typical of Ryzen versus Intel. Apex Legends. On low settings, we're getting more than 165 hertz or 165 FPS for our 1% lows, which it makes it an optimal esports gaming experience. And in I'm not going to say every esports game out there, but almost every esports game out there, with some exceptions like maybe Warzone 2, you're going to be able to get to the 165 hertz refresh rate for your average FPS at least, with the full QHD resolution. So that's great. You're talking Fortnite, Valorant, Counter-Strike 2, all of those, you're definitely going to be able to get to that 165 hertz refresh rate. Though Counter-Strike 2, you might need to fiddle with the settings a little bit. Put them on high or maybe very high instead of ultra to get that full FPS experience. Overall, Baldur's Gate 3 was a great experience at 150 FPS. Cyberpunk 2077, not so great. We had to do some tweaking, dropping ray tracing, dropping DLSS to balanced, and then bam, over 120 FPS. Phenomenal. Dead Space, ultra settings, DLSS on quality, great experience. I think it was in the 70s. Dragon's Dogma 2. Out in the wilderness, fighting stuff, I don't think is going to be a problem. Mainly when you're in cities, high populated areas with NPCs. goodness, that game is not optimized. And we saw some terrible 1% low stutters in Dragon's Dogma 2. Definitely a dev issue, dev optimization still needs to be done with that game. God of War. We were, I believe, in the 70s for ultra settings, DLSS on quality, and dropping graphic settings down to original boosted us up over 100, I think in the 120 range, which is good. It's very good. For QHD gaming, it's going to be a great experience. Helldivers 2, we were averaging around 90 FPS on ultra settings with ultra render quality. Very good gaming experience. Super smooth, consistent 1% lows. No issues in Helldivers 2. Illuvium. A lot of stutters in the overworld. Had to drop textures down to medium. Still need more game optimization from the devs in Illuvium. Overall, game experience, though, I expect after more optimization to be very good, even on epic settings, except textures might need to be dropped down to medium or high. Hogwarts Legacy. We had some crashes, but we did mostly optimize it. I mean, it honestly, I kept stuttering even after some of the optimization that happened. Only 16 gigs of RAM is not quite enough for Hogwarts Legacy. I really recommend 32 gigs for that game specifically, unless you're wanting to play on lower settings. Just because there's so many NPCs and game assets, it tries to suck up like 24 gigs of DDR5 RAM. And that 16 gigs just runs into a bottleneck, causing stutters as things load in and out. So yeah, Hogwarts Legacy otherwise should play quite well once the 32 gig RAM sticks are installed. That would be my anticipation. More optimization would be required, probably medium settings, and then it would probably also play pretty well. But if you want to play ultra, yeah, I just recommend getting more RAM if you can. Witcher 3. We were 70 FPS with frame gen, not quite enough in my opinion. Turning off ray tracing boosted us over 100 or close to 100, 90 to 100, which gave us great overall gameplay experience with frame gen enabled. So definitely capable of playing the game once ray tracing is disabled. But as you can tell, as I went over all those different games, multiple game setting optimizations need to occur. Either turning off ray tracing or turning textures down are the two main things that'll boost your FPS and make this a great gaming laptop in the vast majority of games. In terms of CPU performance, this thing is like I don't know if it's quite the king, but it's almost the king of CPU performance in the mid-range price segment. Very close to being the king. Unofficial king, one of the top 5 laptops without a doubt in the mid-range CPU performance category. There are some other contenders out there that have like the i9 chip, but the thing is, the i9-14900HX is just never going to get 34,000 in Cinebench R23 unless you super undervolt it and like have really high power limits and all of that. This thing's getting 34K out of the box, and that's phenomenal. Okay. That's just phenomenal. So for those of you that need multi-core rendering, great gaming laptop overall, not quite as colorful a display as I would like. Those are kind of the two main things. Great CPU, display good, but not quite as colorful as I would love for like content creators. Like that's what I feel like this thing is going to be great for. But the lack of the display only being 100% sRGB instead of P3 just makes it harder to recommend to content creators. It's not quite perfect, and there's no SD card slot for content creators either. So it's close. It's still going to be a pretty good laptop for content creators, but maybe not quite perfect. Okay. Is that everything? I think I talked about everything. Yeah, battery life. Last thing, battery life. Don't expect much. It's a 16-core CPU. It's not going to be very battery optimized. Like 2 to 4 hours, depending on what you're doing with it. It takes a lot of juice to run a 16-core CPU. And if you really, really maximize it with like everything off, maybe you'll get 5 hours with idling or something. But it's not going to ever be all day battery life, I don't think. So, but it is a 90 watt hour battery life. Battery on the inside, so that is nice, but just the 16 core 32 threads, it just takes a lot to run all those cores and threads. Okay, overall, I can absolutely recommend this laptop. I don't see any major flaws with it. it just has pros and cons, and it will fit some users really, really well, and some users, it will not quite fit them well enough, and there'll be other laptops maybe with better display quality, or maybe better GPU performance, like an RTX 4080, for example. Those are the two main things about the laptop that make it good and bad, and it's overall, I think, very good for someone who wants CPU performance and an overall fairly portable package at a reasonable price point. And they're willing to fiddle with graphical settings to get the gameplay experience that they really want. If you want to have a gameplay experience where you don't have to ever fiddle with graphical settings, get a high-power RTX 4080 or 4090, and you can run everything pretty much on Ultra without having to worry about changing settings, because everything will run smoothly enough to have a great experience. But that costs more money, and those of us who don't have infinite money can appreciate saving some money and changing a couple settings and getting almost the identical experience either way. So anyway, that's my review of the Asus TUF A16. I hope you enjoyed it. Please drop a like and consider subscribing for more gaming laptop content and gaming content in general. Thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Brandon, out. Huzzah. Sorry, Omar, no CS2 test. It wasn't on the list of games anyway, so sorry. Zuzu says, what's your opinion on the 40 series laptop linked with Ryzen CPUs? I think that Ryzen chips and 40 series laptops are a great combo. The main downsides, no Thunderbolt support. You can get USB 4 though. Battery life with Ryzen 8 core CPUs can be very good. Overall, I think Intel and Ryzen CPUs are very competitive, going back and forth. Slightly different pros and cons with each one, but overall, I think both Ryzen and Intel can be great choices. It just depends on pricing, feature set, and does the laptop do what you want it to do at the right price point. So anyway, Karosh says, Gizmo rules, heart. Thanks, I appreciate it. All right, we'll see you in the next one, everybody. See you on the next live stream. I think it's going to be the Scar 18 versus the MSI Titan 18HX. Super looking forward to that.